across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there and a good evening to one and all. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock, and as usual, of course, here's the phone in at midnight. It's a full hour of your voices. There's nobody else, there's no guests, there's nothing. It's the only hour on the station now that does this. It's the 12 till 1. So I need your voices, and I think actually what we should be talking about is that it's St George's Day, and I would have missed it if I hadn't been watching the news. I wouldn't, if my life depended on it, I couldn't tell you what day it was on, what the date was. So why are we so nonplussed by St George's Day? Why is it that when driving through London on the way here, not a single flag, not a single pub even appeared to be celebrating St George's Day? And you know what it's like on St Patrick's Day. I mean, everybody celebrates that. Everyone's wearing green, they've got silly hats on, they're all outside, they're all, you know, looking like they're having a great time. But even going past numerous pubs, it didn't appear that anybody was celebrating St George's Day. Sir Keir Starmer has urged now the public to reclaim the English flag. Sharing his worries about the far right claiming ownership of it during a Downing Street reception held to mark St George's Day. How do we? I mean, I don't quite understand that whole. I mean, how do you reclaim the flag? What? How do we go about doing that? And do we care enough? I mean, this is the thing about England. Scotland has St Andrew's Day, St David's Day in Wales, St Patrick's Day in Ireland, but have we ever really celebrated St George's Day? And if not, why not? What is going wrong? Why is it that we don't really celebrate being English? And I don't think it's got to do with the flag. I don't think it's got to do with the fact that, because we could just put up the Union flag, right? We could do that. That wouldn't be a problem. But I didn't even see that around. I mean, it just seems you see more support when there's a football match on, right? But there was nothing for St George's Day. So I just wonder why that is the case. And I'd love to hear from you as to why you don't celebrate it, why you think we've lost that celebration, why you think that we're not perhaps that proud of being English anymore. Is there much to be proud of? It would be a reasonable question to ask at this stage in our history, I think. So I'd love to hear from you. Please do give me a call on this, because it is, I don't know, it's quite surprising that we don't celebrate it, isn't it? That we don't care. Did you celebrate today? Give me a call. 0344. I can't even remember the number. Can you give me the number? Unless I mean... 499 1000. Thank you. So there's a chair covering up all the details. So, and I never remember that. Well, the problem is I've got about 4 phone numbers from various different radio stations in my head, and I don't want to read out the wrong one. So I have to, thank you very much, Phil Dave. I have to actually read it. Otherwise, you'll be phoning another radio station before you know it. So 0344 499 1000. How embarrassing. So give me a call on that. Now, coming up before then, we have Phil Dave in the studio. He's going to be running through Thursday's newspapers for you. Caroline Faraday will also be here live from LA, and she'll be taking us through some entertainment stories. Bobby Carton will also be joining us, who is a tech journalist in Saratoga Springs in New York. But before all of that, there's something rotten at the heart of Britain's prisons, isn't there? There's something going horribly wrong. And I've always wondered why it is that prisons seem to be the place where you can absolutely, without any problem at all, get drugs. I mean, it should be the place that you can't get drugs, right? I mean, it is literally a building where people are locked in, and there shouldn't really be any way of getting drugs into a prison as in the quantity that is getting in. I understand the odd, the odd drone or something, but even that, I mean, come on. There must be a way of stopping them, for goodness sake, but apparently not. But drugs seem to be at the heart of prisons now. They seem to be. And then you've got gangs that appear to be running the prisons themselves. You have them being allowed with autonomy to carry on in a gangster-style fashion inside a prison. You also have, as we saw the other day, prisoners who attack guards, allowed access to kitchens, to boiling butter, and into a situation where they can make knives and make other weapons. It never ceases to amaze me. It really, because I would have thought the one place that these things wouldn't be allowed to happen would be in a prison. But that is naive, clearly, because this is what is going on in our prisons at the moment. And I don't want to blame, I'm not blaming the prison guards. What a thankless job that is. What a horrendous job that is. And now prison guards are being allowed to, well, they're testing or trialling, having tasers with them in the prisons, in adult male prisons only. I just want to make that distinction. So what is going on in our prisons, and what can be done to change any of this? Because it just seems to be that, oh, well, that's just the way prisons are. John Podmore joins me now, who's a former governor at HMP Brixton, Belmarsh and Swalside, prison inspector and international consultant on prison corruption. John, good evening to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining me.
Pleasure.
Let's start with a broad brush, really, of what is going on and what is going wrong in our prisons.
Well, the evidence for what's going wrong and the issues that are causing all the problems are being highlighted by a very superb Chief Inspector of Prisons and indeed a Chief Inspector of Probation, because we have a prison and probation service that they have been put together. We might want to talk about is that a good idea? But Charlie Taylor, Chief Inspector of Prison, is going round and he's cataloguing all sorts of disasters. He's identifying some good prisons, and there's Oakwood and there's Hollesley Bay. So, there are beacons of light out there, but he's talking about all sorts of things. And I think one of the big issues that he's highlighted is the lack of staff-prisoner relationships. Prisons work on relationships, and it's about how staff and prisoners get on. It's about the balance of power. You want your officers to be in charge and in control. But what he's discovered, what he's found sort of talking to staff and prisoners, is that, for want of a better way of describing it, staff are looking one way and prisoners are looking the other. Those relationships aren't there. There's a void being left in that sort of power dynamic. And why are staff doing that? Well, they're badly trained, they're badly led, poorly recruited, and we might want to talk about that. But in that gap, nefarious influences are coming in. It might be terrorist gangs, it might be serious organised criminal gangs, and they're coming in and they are filling the gap that's being left by prison staff. Now, when I was a governor, I wanted everyone to join, for want of a better phrase, my gang. I wanted there to be positive things in prison, a regime, education, training, those sorts of positive components that would give prisoners something to hang on to, give prisoners some kind of motivation, give prisoners some meaning in their lives. But as Charlie Taylor reports, lack of education, lack of training, prisoners locked in their cell for a long period of time. And if you're locked in the equivalent of a car park space that's got a bunk bed and a toilet and someone you never met before, you're going to seek mind-altering substances to get by. So it is a general mess, and it's being well catalogued by our two chief inspectors.
See, a lot of people listening, John, would say, yeah, but it appears that we are now appeasing prisoners to keep them calm, if you like. They're getting, PlayStations in their rooms, and they're getting televisions, and they don't have to even pay for their television license, which we all have to pay for. They're getting free education, which somebody else would have to pay for. Where's the tipping point that is acceptable to the general population as opposed to the prison population?
Well, prisons are very expensive, and at the moment they're an expensive way of making people worse. What we want to do is a degree of retribution, a degree of deterrence, but above all, we want people who are in prison not to come back, not to reoffend. And in order to do that, we need prisons that are positive and constructive. We don't want concrete coffins. The punishment is the loss of liberty. The punishment is going to prison. So we want decent and humane conditions. We want to challenge people for why they're there. We want to challenge their offending behavior. We want to challenge the fact that they don't really have any investment in society. And we want to let them out such that they don't come back. Because if they reoffend after they've been released, then that creates more victims. And that's you, me, and our families and friends. And that's what we want to reduce. But at the moment, we've got a prison system that's actually making people worse. Again, you listen to Charlie Taylor and Dame Carol Black did a review generally of drugs, and they were both finding that young men in particular were going into prison without a drug habit, but coming out not only with a drug habit, but with a serious amount of debt. And that debt was falling on the families because the prisoners themselves have got no way of paying them. So we've got a prison that's, these aren't holiday camps. These are not nice places. I've spent 40 years in them. They're not pleasant places to be. And we need to be careful about the TVs and the PlayStations and all this, that, and the other. What we should be concentrating on is constructive regimes, education and training, because all the stats of people coming into prison, it's about people who are coming out of the care system, who haven't worked, who have been excluded from school. So prisons are, becoming a repository for society's wider failings, and we need to address that because it's costing us an awful lot. And the politicians are saying we can't build our way out of the crisis, but what are they doing? They're building their way out of a crisis. They just opened a prison not far from York in a village called Pocklington. It's adjacent to a prison called Full Sutton. It cost £650 million for 1,400 prisoners.
Wow.
So the average cost of building a new cell is about £600,000, and that's not sustainable. That's not acceptable to the taxpayer. So we need a better prison system that's protecting the public and not being at an exorbitant cost for the taxpayer.
Let's have a look at the issue with drugs, because we've got a story here. One of Britain's best prisons became a drug-plagued nightmare where 17 inmates died in a year. My understanding it wasn't all 17 that died from the drugs, but still. How is this happening? How is this level of drugs where prisoners are coming out with debt, that somebody's making a heck of a lot of, some other prisoners making a heck of a lot of money in jail where they shouldn't be able to do that? How are they making contact with, what is going on? Where is there must be corruption for this level of drugs to be inside prisons?
Yes, there is, and that's become my speciality internationally. You say, how do you stop drugs coming into prison? That there's only one way, and it's quite simple. The only way you stop drugs coming into prison is for prisoners not to want them. Now, at the moment, we've got in our prisons a perfect storm of demand, whereby you've got prisoners who are locked in their cell, as Charlie Taylor reports, sometimes 22, 23 hours a day, not getting out to do anything meaningful. So they'll look for what we colloquially call bird killers, some way of getting through the system, getting through the days and the weeks and the months and the years, and self-medicating with drugs. So the demand is there. You have to reduce the demand, and you reduce the demand through treatment, and through providing alternatives to drugs, providing a meaningful regime. But you've also got problems of supply, and drugs in prison probably about 3 times the price of those on the outside. And where you've got that demand, you've got serious organized crime is seriously well organized in prison, and that's providing those drugs. Now,
But
what
how
those
do they get in? How do they get in, John? Because it's a prison, right?
yeah.
It should be quite difficult. I mean, if you go to visit somebody, you're checked. Everything about you is checked. So how do they get in there? Is it
I mean,
prison guards?
Well, I mean, there are a variety of routes. You mentioned drones. They can come in through jars of coffee. They can be thrown over the wall. They can come in through visitors, and they can come in through staff. And in my view, in my experience, that is the primary route. Now, that's not to condemn prison staff. If you say there's 100 corrupt staff in any one cohort of staff, then 95, 98% of those will have become corrupted, by being conditioned, manipulated, blackmailed, threatened. And we've had a recruitment crisis. The prison service, in their wisdom, aided and abetted by government, decided that the easiest way of saving money about 5 or 8 years ago was to sack all the experienced staff. And that created the perfect storm that we've got. They found there weren't enough staff, and they've recruited, but they've recruited young, inexperienced staff. The training, I work around the world. The training is about 6 to 7 weeks. I've been to South America, the Scandinavia. It's 2 years. It's 2 years to degree level. So we are recruiting a lot of staff and throwing them to the wolves. There will be a certain cohort, and it's a worrying factor now, is that some staff will join for purpose. And I caught one when I was at Brixton. People who become prison officers because they have, malice aforethought. They want to deal drugs, and they want to make money. But Charlie Taylor said that as far as drones are concerned, we have ceded control of the skies. Well, I think for a whole variety of reasons, not least the recruitment and the training crisis and the leadership crisis, that we've ceded wider control of our prisons. Not all of them, as I say, there are some good ones around, but ceded control to serious organised crime. And getting the control back is going to be very difficult. And I don't know if you've heard about what's happening in France at the moment. You probably heard on the news that there was some attacks on cars in prison car parks, and shots were being fired at the walls, and fires were being lit. Now, that's in direct response to what the French government have done, which is targeted the serious organized criminals in the prisons who are running these operations, and they're not difficult to work out who they are, and they are segregating them. They're taking them away. They're using what we've been talking about, separation units, such that they can't run and control these. Now it's causing a backlash, because when you try and take back control of something as lucrative, and as well organized as this, you will get a backlash. But it's what's happened in France is not getting much publicity over here.
I mean, that is amazing, isn't it? Just quickly before I let you go, what do you make of tasers being allowed into with prison guards? Do you support that?
Well, I'm deeply, deeply saddened that we have got to this stage, because I'm someone who has resisted, for want of a better phrase, the militarization of prison officers for many, many years. But, I'm sad to say that such is the level of violence, such are the levels of assaults, that something drastic has to be done. Now, okay, they're talking of tasers. Now, in order to use a taser, then it should only be with specialist staff in targeted interventions. It shouldn't be for prison officers walking the landings. And my goodness me, you need a serious amount of training. So, I don't think we're going to be able to resist the this kind of initiative. But we need to be careful we don't go further down the route. Now, you said quite rightly there was no question of tasers being used in anything other than adults, but what is about to be sanctioned, I believe, in children's prisons, that's those under 18, is the use of parva spray, which to you and me is pepper spray. And again, that's a reaction to the loss of control. So, I mean, I'm totally against, pepper spray on children. Yes, I think I'm going to have to reluctantly accept tasers in specialist units with specialized, highly trained staff. But, we talk about sort of stab vests. Well, the sorts of assaults that tragically took place at Franklin wouldn't have been stopped by stab-proof vests. So, we're in real danger of going down a very, very steep spiral. And, I think just concentrating on stab vests and stun guns and kind of stuff like that. We need to wind it back and work out why we've lost control. And that's getting back to basics, which is about staff-prisoner relationships. It's about staff training, and it's also about leadership, as well as
it's more expensive, though, isn't it, than just providing somebody with a taser when control has already been lost.
Well, no, I mean, staff-prison relationships are relatively cheap. You start sort of, putting in things like, stab vests and stuff. You're not tackling the root cause of the problem. The root cause of the problem is the fracturing of relationships on a day-to-day basis around, involving 80 odd thousand prisoners. And to get that back, prisoners need to be positive and constructive places, where we're tackling offending behaviour and improving prisoners' chances of surviving on the outside. Whereas at the moment, prisons are actually making people worse, and we're not going to stop making people worse in general the way we are now with a stab vest and a taser.
John, fascinating stuff. Thank you very much indeed for joining me. John Podmore there, former governor at HMP Brixton, Belmarsh and Swalside, and prison inspector and international consultant on prison corruption. Quick break, back in a second.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here with you. And coming up at midnight is the phone in. And I want to talk to you about St George's Day. Sir Keir Starmer has urged the public to reclaim the English flag from Southport rioters. And this is at a reception held to mark St George's Day. Now, just to be really confusing, it is St George's Day today, but apparently, technically, it's going to be celebrated on Monday because of Easter. I don't know why. Don't even ask me. So I suppose the question will be, did you celebrate it today or will you be celebrating it on Monday? And I mean, they certainly had a reception at Downing Street for St George's Day on the it is on the 23rd, but look, I don't the question stands, and that is, are we proud to be English? What is it to be English? And have you tried to fly an English flag? We know what that looks like, right? It's white with the red cross across St George, so we know what that looks like, and it makes up part of the Union flag, right? So, and they celebrate in Scotland, they celebrate in Wales, not St George's Day, St Andrews, St David's, and in Ireland, St Patrick's. So why don't we? Why don't we? Why are we not? Oh, is it that we're not patriotic? We're not proud to be English? It just doesn't seem to be a thing that we do. Anyway, give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. 03444 499 1000, and you can message me as well. Put the word talk and then your message to 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a good evening. This is Talk and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And coming up in this half an hour, we have Caroline Faraday, who will be here to talk us through some showbiz stuff. But first, Bobby Carton joins me, a tech journalist in Saratoga Springs, New York. Hello, Bobby. How are you doing?
Good, Petrie. How are you? And of course, thank you for having me on your show. It's great to see you.
Hey, it's always a pleasure. Let's talk first about Elon Musk. He is leaving full-time Doge and heading back to focus on Tesla. Is he too late, though?
Oh, he is absolutely too late. I think his actions on the day of President Trump's inauguration, I think he sealed his fate. I think
I agree.
that is a massive drop, and he's definitely put himself into the public eye in a way that hasn't been really appealing, and stepping away from Doge to focus on Tesla, I think it's too late, in my opinion. I could be wrong.
I mean, it's really interesting to me that the board haven't yet, I know one member of the board said it's time for you to go, but the board hasn't really insisted that he step down because the
No.
brand, has been absolutely become a toxic brand now. And then he goes on Fox News and cries and says, why are people being so mean to me, wanting empathy, when he famously said he thinks that empathy is a downfall of Western civilization. I mean, it's extraordinary behavior from him.
It is insane behavior. And he contradicts himself all the time. And I think he's in a situation where he has as you said, the board has not let him go, and that really let him sort of this toxicity sort of really expand. And again, the brand Tesla is already damaged. There's no way of getting out of it, and in my opinion, I know Tesla owners. They're looking for ways to get out of their car. They're looking for ways to get out of their lease. I have several friends who own Teslas and haven't been able to even sell them.
Wow.
So it has been really difficult, and of course we saw what happened yesterday with the announcement. It's like a 70% drop. That's huge. He did make some money though. Obviously there was some announcements today. His brand still made money through stocks. So
Yeah, well, I mean, they went up, didn't they, on the news that he was coming back full time. Well, mostly full time. He hasn't said he's going to do a couple of days here and there for Trump still. But it was 71% down, though, wasn't it? Quarter on quarter earnings. I mean,
Yeah.
this is devastating for a brand. And while all this has been going on, of course, you've got Chinese technology that has just leaps and bounds gone
Leaps and
ahead of
bounds.
Tesla.
Yeah, and you look at exactly, and we're definitely seeing that market grow in the Chinese market. We're seeing Volkswagen, for example, really struggling to battle up against the Chinese market, and Rivian has really stepped up to here in the United States. You're seeing more Rivian vehicles, electric vehicles, sort of on the road, outpacing Teslas. So.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens next with Tesla, but I don't know if you can ever turn a brand around. And this isn't the first businessman to have had this, that Trump has had this effect on, is it really? Because wasn't there a famous pillow guy? Was it the Pillow Man?
Yes, the Pillow Man. Yes, the CEO who recently was on TV saying that he's completely broke, that his empire, his pillow empire, is completely destroyed, totally decimated. And again, you're seeing, this really interesting thing with Tesla being rebranded by people calling, with a swastika
Yeah.
comment. And that rolls off the tongue off of many people, much, in the same way that where people were using Google, saying Google it, using search engines, just Google it. And Google loved it. In this case, Tesla is not loving the fact that their vehicles are being called swastikas.
No, it's another one of those interesting lessons that perhaps oligarchs and billionaires and business owners should learn about getting involved in politics, and whether
Exactly.
but they love the power, don't they? So there you go.
They do.
Let's have a look at Chat GPT. Apparently saying please and thank you is the wrong thing to do.
It's still wrong. Even though we were raised to say please and thank you,
Yeah.
there's songs about please and thank you. It's polite, it's the polite thing to do. And of course, ChatGPT has this personality, the cadence of the voiceovers. They're very human-like. So of course, you naturally want to say thank you. And what it is it's causing OpenAI millions of dollars in energy costs because it takes power to run those type of large language models. And when you say just a simple please or thank you, that is costing OpenAI millions of dollars. And it's the same thing if you ask, for example, you can ask ChatGPT, what would you like to be called? In my case, my ChatGPT wants to be called Nova, so I refer to ChatGPT as Nova. That also, like, personalizing your AI is costing them millions of dollars.
So are they trying to encourage us just to be blunt and treat it like not like a human, I guess?
Exactly. That's exactly what they want. They want us to throw away mannerisms and say, just talk to it like an assistant. But even then, who talks to an assistant in a way that is not polite? Unless you're a terrible person.
And
OpenAI is struggling.
There's been a lot of suggestions, I don't know whether it's the same in the US, but certainly here, that children's manners have become really bad because of, I'm going to have to say the words, I apologise to everybody who's got one at home, Alexa, because they just bark orders at it. And then they bark orders at mum. And they're just not learning that one is, you say please or thank you to.
Again, that is exactly it. I mean, technology, wearable technology, home technology, smart homes has really sort of put in a bit of a roadblock on what mannerisms mean. And we're seeing that, as you said. And again, now here we are with a large language model that has a very human-like response.
Yeah.
And it's polite, and you want to be polite back. It is the natural thing to do. And now they're saying, stop doing that. Just treat it like technology, like you would talk to, like, again, we'll say Alexa, even though my Alexa is just going to go off. But,
but I don't have one. I won't have one in my house. I'm not interested. Let's skip on and have a look at Nintendo. The Nintendo Switch. I thought they had frozen. Was it Nintendo because of the tariffs? They said they weren't going to import the new consoles.
They weren't going to import the new consoles, but then Trump announced that technology would be tariff exempt, which was great news for Nintendo and Nintendo Switch enthusiasts. The Switch 2, which was then put on hold, is now back on pre-order. Pre-orders open in the United States tomorrow on Amazon and Target. However, Nintendo announced that just in Japan alone, they got 2.2 million pre-order applications. These are just people to apply to pre-order. Doesn't guarantee that they'll get it. And so now Nintendo's saying that they don't think they're going to be able to get enough devices out in time for the actual launch in June. But that's a huge jump. 2.2 million just in Japan only. That's not in the US. Until tomorrow, we're going to see what that looks like. And, can Nintendo deliver? We will find out. But they're already telling people they don't think they can deliver by June.
Oh, dear. Let's have a look. Oh, this is interesting. The researcher creates a way to turn 2D photos into 3D. And I was thinking, what would that look like? But I have watched the recent Black Mirror.
Yes.
So I do know what you're talking about. But for those who haven't seen Black Mirror, describe what you mean by a flat to 3D and what that will do for us.
Yeah, so it's basically taking a standard 2D photo, and they're able to, using a technology called monocular 3D estimation, and they're able to take a 2D photo and then estimate what that would look like as a 3D environment. And through a MetaQuest 3, you can look at a photo and then actually move around in the photo. You can actually walk into the photo. It's interesting technology. Now, there's definitely limitations in it, but it opens up a lot of other applications on what we can do. And you can take any old photo, like a photo from the 70s, from the 80s, a recent photo. It could be just a 2D image, and it can turn into a 3D image very quickly. You can actually go online if you just Google 3D monocular 3D estimation. There is a GitHub that you can just jump into, grab it, and use it in your MetaQuest 3. But it's amazing technology. It sort of goes beyond Nerf technology or Gaussian splatting technology. It is really sort of looking using machine learning to look at the image, and then the image is then sort of making assumptions.
So it's just guessing. So it's just literally just I mean, that is
Just
fascinating, though. I mean, to
But
be
it's
able to
very
do that.
accurate. It's very accurate, and you can literally move around, move the photo to kind of see what's behind there, and it kind of again it sort of guesstimates certain components of the image.
But if it's not in the photograph, it's not going to be in the 3D.
It's not going to be in there.
Yeah, so you can't see behind a person, for example.
For now, but through computer vision and machine learning technology, we could absolutely have those gaps filled.
I mean, that's amazing, isn't it? Quite terrifying.
Yeah, very, very, totally amazing, and it could be used in. There's a lot of really interesting applications. Whether it could be for incident reporting, not just for memories, but like incident reporting, looking at crash accidents, be able to see details that you weren't able to see maybe in an image or even in a video.
I mean, is this heading towards? I don't know if we're there already because I'm not very technical, but to screenless televisions. We
are in a sense there with screenless televisions. If you're using like a headset, for example, you can pull up a monitor in your headset. I have an Apple Vision Pro. I use them for extra monitors during work days.
But I'm thinking about just on the table like a 3D, let's say a ballet, happening without a screen, so looking like actual people.
There is technology. It does involve screens, but not in the way that you're thinking. But there is technology out there that allows you to bring in holograms into an environment.
Wow.
It's pretty interesting.
Yeah, that is, because you see those in science fiction films and stuff, and I think, oh, how close are we getting? Yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there. And social media. Mostly we hear how bad social media is for children, and I guess we're talking about the different age ranges. It would be different levels of good or bad, but experts are not determined that it's either really at the moment.
Yes, so it's interesting work. We've been sort of going through this process of social media, letting people know, what it does, the power of social media, and the impact it has on young children. And there is definitely data that shows that it can have a negative impact on children. However, there is a new crop of therapists, psychologists, experts, researchers now saying that social media, because it's become so mainstream, because we use it so often in everything, even our banks, our healthcare systems are all using some form of social media to connect, that now they're saying social media is actually something that kids should be exposed to, should be using and learning through. Again, it's just sort of like basic tool building, because it's going to be something that these kids, as they get older, will be using daily. I mean, we use social media.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah. It's times have changed, haven't they? So they do need to know how to do this stuff. I wish I knew how to do it.
It's the way I put it, it's like learning how to learning how to use a credit card. When you're younger, you're really not taught how to use one, and you're all of a sudden 18, you get one, and you're like, whoa, how is this? What am I doing with it?
Yeah.
But if you're taught how to use a debit card at an early age, you learn those skills to navigate and balance finances. And it's the same thing with social media. Teach them early how to navigate, how to use it, and that's what these researchers are now saying. So interesting times.
Very, very interesting. It makes perfect sense, though. It really does make sense. I'm just glad my son is old enough that I didn't have to go through that. Bobby, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. Bobby Carton, there, tech journalist in Saratoga Springs, New York, and we're heading back to the States in a moment, but further away in LA.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and good evening to you. Just to let you know, Donald Trump is doing one of his usual, I don't know, press briefings in the Oval Office that he does every single day, and he's just declared that he thinks he has a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine. No details of that, but I would find that very unlikely myself. But we know what Donald Trump's like, so let's wait and see where the truth lies in that statement. Right now, though, let's head off to Los Angeles and to our multi-award-winning entertainment journalist there, Caroline Faraday. Hello, love, you all right?
You do it to make me laugh, don't you? Somebody's nicked some of my awards from the shelf behind me, which I just discovered as we went on air.
Who's taken that
Where
then?
have they gone? I was like, no, I'm going to be going and tackling my editor about it.
It'll be your daughter who's pretending that she's won them all.
I'll tell you, the world need worry not, because she's going to definitely outclass me on any of the awards front. We went to Las Vegas last week. She's only 7, ended up on stage in a show in Las Vegas, looking like it was her natural home.
Oh, God. You see, cats don't have dogs. That's what they say. She's your daughter, right? She doesn't stand a chance. Let's have a look at some of the stories. Celebrity Big Brother. I haven't watched it. I have to be perfectly honest with you and up front, I haven't watched it. But Chesney Hawkes is still in, is he? The one and only?
Yeah, they're down to the final now.
Wow.
The thing is about Chesney Hawkes, I think that what happens with Big Brother and Celebrity Big Brother, but all the Big Brothers, is that you get all these characters and they get shown up, and when they're voting people out, it's a bit more strategic. But when you get down to the final, it really comes down to whether or not someone's a nice human being, and has demonstrated that throughout the show. And the public will root for you. And so, there's a few people in there that have shown nice sides of themselves, for sure. But I've known Chesney for a really long time, and I couldn't root for him more. He's just one of the nicest people you could ever wish to meet, and I think it's really fun that he's kind of getting this resurgence as well in his career, because he was obviously Mr. One-Hit Wonder with the one and only.
Yeah.
But he's had a new album out, and then he's done all this. He did this video. Oh my God. He did a video for a single recently, and it was like a parody of Saltburn, you know that.
Yeah.
And so he wasn't wearing very much in the video, and he's just really good at laughing at himself and, being a good sport. And you get some of these stars that have one-hit wonders, they really get resentful. Patsy Palmer, sort of the same thing.
Yeah.
And obviously she's best known for being Bianca. And she hates that, and you could see she got really prickly about it, about that kind of thing. But Chesney just absolutely laps up being Chesney Hawkes of One and Only and Mole fame.
Oh, that's brilliant. And it's always nice to see good people doing well. And if this helps him with his career, I'd rather it was a nice person than some of the absolute idiots that go into these shows.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting with Big Brother. It's gone through so many lives now, hasn't it? It's like it started on Channel 4 and then went to Channel 5, and now it's on ITV. I feel like everyone's had a bit of a go making it.
Might be time to put it down, to be fair, but
Got a few more lives left, maybe.
Maybe. I'm more excited about the Celebrity Traitors that's coming up.
Right.
Whoa.
Do you see who's in it? That's the thing, is that Big Brother sort of has been around for so long, and Traitors is, got a lot more
A-listers.
Intrigue and edge, and but it's all, it's got a lot going for it as a show, even without celebs in, isn't it? Of just being
it's brilliant. And I love the idea. I love Stephen Fry. I love that he's going in.
Yeah.
And I can't remember the others, but I
Tom
remember
Daley. I'll run you through who's in it.
Good. Yeah,
Tom
remind
Daley's
me.
in it. Alan Carr is in it, and
I love him.
Huge Alan Carr fan. I think he is so funny. Nick Mohammed, who you all know as Tate from Ted Lasso.
Yep.
Tom Daly. He's Jonathan Ross, but that's not who I was thinking of. Joe Wilkinson, that's his name.
Oh, I love him as well.
He's so funny.
He's so funny,
dry, isn't he? He's so brilliant. Claire Balding, Paloma Faith, who I adore. She's so fun and so talented, and also is kind of really like raw and honest. So I think she'll be quite an interesting choice to have in there. Celia Imrie, who's kind of acting royalty, isn't she? Charlotte Church, talking about people coming back who were young stars in their early days. The lovely Kate Garraway is in there as well. And a few others as well. So
it's going to be epic. Yeah, it's going to be really, really good. I'm really looking forward to that. Right, let's move on. Meghan Markle has been on stage, hasn't she, chatting?
You know what this reminds me of? You know when people give you advice about having a job interview, and the interviewer is this is the staged conversation. What are your flaws? Oh, I'm a perfectionist, right? You know that stage.
I work too hard.
Oh, I just can't. I'm such a workaholic. Anyway, so she was invited up on stage at this event, the Time 100 Summit in New York. And the interviewer said to her, oh, can you make a confession? You thought that might involve a confession. Do you know what it was? Her confession was, I'm the happiest I've ever been.
Oh, my God.
Sorry.
I mean, but why was anyone even asking her?
Well, that's a whole other thing, isn't it? But yeah, apparently it's to do with her new podcast. I wonder how many episodes, 2 or 3, she'll get out of that one.
I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? That I don't know how many more chances this couple are going to get to be what they thought they wanted to be and what they thought they were owed, right? They thought they were going to be global megastars, mixing with global megastars and living this, rarefied life. And actually, it just seems to be, failing after failing after failing.
What does it mean to be the happiest you've ever been? Like, what does that mean in that moment? Does it mean you're more content with yourself? Or does it mean you've been chasing happiness and you think that this is it finally?
I don't know.
Like, because she seems to have kind of been chasing, to my amateur observations, this thing that she thinks happiness is, rather than just realizing that it's something that, that's inside of you, and it's about appreciating what you've got, not what you could have or don't have, or what someone did to you this one time, that, all these kind of things that you hang on to. But she said her goal at this stage in her life is just have fun and focus on her family. Yeah, because if there's one thing people think of when they think of Meghan, it's that she's so fun.
Fun. Lots of fun.
Oh God, I'm having a night out. I must invite Meghan. She's so fun. Doesn't take herself seriously at all.
Can you imagine those long winter nights? Just the two of them.
And then she said, oh my God, big yourself up, Meghan, because she said, my love language is taking care of people. And she said, it actually energizes you. I find that I'm so giving. Why are you laughing?
Well, I'm just trying to imagine you saying that to me. Oh, Petrie, my love language.
Can you imagine if you started this call and I was like, I'm feeling so energized, Petrie, because this week I've taken care of so many people and it just energizes me so much.
Yeah, I think it would be a cold day in hell before either of us were to make a comment like that, to be perfectly honest. But
we are self-aware enough to realise what our strengths and flaws are.
Exactly, but maybe she isn't. And like you said, she is still, whether she's chasing happiness or what, she's still chasing something. Will she ever catch it? I mean, that's the thing. And maybe
I think she did catch it, and it was about 6'1" with ginger hair. Yeah. That's what she was chasing, and she got it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, but I think the life they're chasing is the life they actually left behind. Because that would have given them the fame and the position that I think they're both now chasing, that they will never get.
Control.
Yeah.
And also, she wouldn't have been able to isolate Harry in that way if he had all of those people around him advising him.
Yeah, I'm just not. I think a lot of people have got their view of what's going to happen in the future, given Meghan's behaviour in the past, and I think it would be very. I think people would be genuinely sad for that to happen. But you know, there's some couples. Listen, I can tell you all the people that sat at my first wedding and said, well, we give it a week. So I don't want to be a massive hypocrite about this, but you do know, don't you? Yeah, you do know. Oh, Caroline, you're wonderful. Thank you. Good to see you. See you very soon. Caroline Faraday there, multi-award winning entertainment journalist based in LA. Right, coming up, we're going to be looking through Thursday's newspapers, and Phil Dave will be joining me in the studio in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and it's very nice to have your company, actually. And for the next hour, I am in the company of Phil Dave, who was sitting here on Monday.
I was. You were brave, weren't you?
Yeah, I was. And
at least you've still got a programme, so I couldn't have done too much damage.
That didn't collapse, I don't think. Hello,
Sorry.
Anybody out there?
Can you just let us know you're still
let us
watching?
know you're still out there. Listen, before we get into the papers, St George's Day.
Yes.
Right. So it is both today, the official day, and next Monday.
Next Monday's more for religious reasons, isn't it?
Yeah,
so.
yeah, but it is actually today, right? But why aren't we celebrating it? Why don't we celebrate?
Oh,
St.
I
George's
do. I
Day?
mark it. I absolutely. I have to tell you, last night. I was, so if anyone doesn't know, I live with a four-legged creature by the name of Rufus, who is my cat. And Rufus lives by his own rules. It's very simple. It might be the middle of the night, but if he decides he's hungry,
That's it.
Doesn't matter. He's hungry and he will let me know about it. So he sits on my bedside. He's quite cunning. He'll sit on my bedside table behind the lamp, so he knows I can't reach around and just shoo him away because I'll smack the lamp over. And he'll sit there and meow at the top of his lungs.
Ah, nice.
So it wakes me up. And I got to bed about midnight last night, so only after about 3 hours. You know, sleep cycles come in about 3 hours. So actually, I'd had enough sleep, technically speaking, after 3 hours. And of course, I don't know whether or not he knew that much, but he certainly meowed and he woke me up. And as a result of it, I was lying in bed awake and I thought, oh, God, what am I going to do now? Because I don't want to get up and about. So the alarm's not set until 6:30. And I thought, I know, I'm going to make a point across social media that it's St. George's Day and I want to mark it accordingly. So I did. I absolutely made a point right across all of my social media platforms that I stupidly sign up to. And I put a little nod to St. George's Day. Wow. So I mark it.
I wouldn't have even known if I hadn't seen it on the news today.
No, I didn't. I did know 23rd of April was, technically speaking, St. George's Day.
But, I mean, is there a difference between being English and British?
Yes, the short answer is English is much more focused on the English culture. Now, whether or not you...
What is English culture?
Well, that in itself is a very good question. I mean, I would suggest, you know, a couple of pints down the pub after a game of footy, you know, would sort of suggest the typical English culture. But whether or not that's just something to do with the... is Humphrey snoring?
Yeah.
And, sorry, can we just take a moment of appreciation? Forget what I'm about to say, because it's not as interesting. Hang on.
Oh,
there you go. He's woken up now. But there you go.
We're snoring.
Brilliant.
So you can't see him, but he is there. So
I love
it's
it.
Not me.
Completely and utterly just overshadowed by a 10-week-old pup.
I know, it's ridiculous.
Anyway, so no, I was going to say, in terms of what English culture is, it's true that there is no official definition, but that's primarily, I think, because we've spent so many years trying to ebb away at English culture because apparently it's racist.
There is a Scottish culture, there is a Welsh culture.
Yeah, for goodness sake, if your idea of Scottish culture is eating inside-out sheep's stomach, then no thank you very much.
No, but there's a lot of cultural heritage there. There's a lot of
Well, there's the whiskey.
Stuff.
I approve of that.
I know, we both approve of the whiskey, but I'm not a huge fan of haggis, but you know, some of the cultural things that happen are fantastic. You know, the pipes and, you know, the haggis and Burns Night and Hogmanay and all of those. There is definitely a very strong Scottish culture, I would say. I don't think there is an English culture. I don't know what the English culture is.
I think it depends which sort of what you're looking at. So, for example, if you're looking at the food side of things, then I'd say fish and chips, pie and mash, that kind of thing. That's probably sort of the English culture.
Pie and mash is more London, and fish and chips isn't English.
It's been adopted by
it,
and it's exactly the same way curry is not English, but a lot of English people like curry.
Yeah.
So I don't think it sort of matters too much on that front. Look, I reckon that I understand why people don't believe that there is much of an English culture, but even something as simple as queuing could be deemed an English culture. You know, someone sort of was too intimidated to sort of potentially run the risk of jumping ahead of somebody else who might or might not be in line for either being served or maybe for some food. And they spend half an hour debating as to whether or not the person in front of them is indeed queuing or whether or not they're actually standing there contemplating what they want from a menu. You know, that's sort of like a nuanced little British or English culture, you know. I quite like things like that.
It's not very broad and it's not very deep. You know, I mean, I just don't, I don't know what Englishness necessarily
All right,
is.
OK, I'll throw something else at you. Sort of what about being unnecessarily polite? You know, sort of thanking or apologising for something that's not actually yours to apologise for or be sorry about.
Yeah, but it's not. That's, you know, if you were going to say, right, the list of what makes, I mean, the Scottish culture, like I said, there's so much about it with the music and the English music. What's that? You know, we know, if you were to ask what the Scottish music, you know, it's the bagpipes. I mean, that's the thing, and I happen to love bagpipes, actually. They're beautiful when played properly.
I was going to say, they have to be really properly played if they are going to be beautiful. If not, I'm sorry, it's a headache in the bag.
The Scots Guards, when they play, unbelievable. But you know...
It's a skill. Have you ever tried to play bagpipes?
No, I haven't.
Oh, they are difficult.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
well, they
you
look
know
difficult.
what? It's the whole sort of like rubbing your head and tapping your stomach or what have you. It's that kind of level of difficult, because what you actually have to do is play the pipe with your hands independently of continuously blowing into the bag and then using your arm to actually sort of push the air out that you're blowing into. It's really tricky.
And like I said, it can be absolutely beautiful. But so that's what I'd associate with Scottish music. I don't know where I would go with English.
Oh, I mean, there's plenty of examples. Sorry, the Beatles is probably one of the best exports.
But that's not cultural. That doesn't go way, way back, right? That's just to the 60s.
How far back do you want to go? The harpsichord? Like what?
Well, yeah, but you wouldn't associate that necessarily as an English. Whereas you would.
I'd say look
the
at someone like
bagpipes.
Greensleeves, of course, as composed by King Henry VIII.
I just think that other nations within Britain have a much more defined description or defined culture than
I
than
disagree.
we do.
I tell you what I think it is. I think it's for so many years we have been told constantly how, you can't be proud to be English, you're racist, you're just shutting down other cultures, you're a horrible human being if you even think that sort
I
of
think
you've
that's
got...
Britain. I don't think that's just England. And others have managed
Yeah, but
to
as you rightly
maintain it.
identify, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland have got their own cultures as well, and their own identities and their little nuances that make them who they are. But I understand why someone would struggle to find something that is truly English. But the bottom line is, I believe that England has a great deal to celebrate, and I absolutely detest the way that so many people, especially those in authority, it's shameful anyone in authority even has the audacity to suggest that we should be ashamed of being English and being British. I'm not racist for celebrating St George's Day. I'm not racist for flying an English flag. I'm English.
Yeah. I think that is the thing that, of course, now Keir Starmer is saying that we need to reclaim the flag.
Yeah, but he's saying reclaim it for a very different reason. He's saying reclaim it from far-right fundamentalists, blah, 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 but which is not the case at all. I personally believe that sort of where we should be reclaiming it is by showing those individuals who say that flying the English flag is somehow racist, which of course it is not, but flying the English flag is racist. That's what we should be reclaiming it from, personally.
Well, and I don't know, how do we do that, though? All just fly the flag and then...
Do it. Be proud of it.
Yeah.
This is the land we live in, and it's the land that has given us the freedom to celebrate and live life the way we want.
Yeah, people do celebrate the flag when it's the football, don't they? When you see that, you see the England flag.
Yeah, but then they associate it with the England team, don't they, rather than actually saying it's the English flag.
Yes, but I'm saying that the flag has been reclaimed by football, at least. Anyway.
Well, it's something. I mean, look, the number of countries that one goes to and you see their flags proudly flying all over the flipping place. Why don't we have that here? It's bizarre.
But
There's nothing wrong with our flag.
We're not proud of it. Or we'll fly the...
We are encouraged not to be proud of it, and it's worse.
The Union flag. We'll fly that instead.
Yeah, but we are encouraged not to be proud of our flag. That's the problem. It's not even... Or just even be proud to be who we are. British, English, whatever it is. It's almost like we're told that by doing that you're somehow some horrible far-right leaning individual. It's stuff and nonsense.
It has been taken by them as a symbol of their far-right horribleness.
Or indeed, they're just reminding people that England exists and that it's not here to be taken.
But that's the problem, is that it has been taken by people who are not what I'd want to be associated with being
okay, but all right, so
that are racist.
Fine, okay, so I've put the England flag all over my social media today. Does that make me somehow racist and far right?
Of course not. But I'm saying that it has been adopted by people who are, and that is why a lot of people don't want to fly it in case they are considered to be the same.
The reason why they're doing that is because for so many successive generations we have been told by numerous bodies, whether it's the government or other awful organisations who say, oh, you can't do that because it's not welcoming to other cultures, other nationalities, you're horrible for doing that because it's basically sticking a proverbial couple of fingers up to people from other countries who come to live in England or the UK. That's the reason. I think one of the reasons why the quote-unquote far right has been allowed to adopt that is because what they're actually saying is, no, this is enough already. It's ridiculous.
I don't think they are saying that, though, Phil. That's the thing.
Well, what are they saying?
I think they are saying that they don't want anybody of colour in this country, and they don't want anybody who's different in this country.
That. I don't think all of them do.
But that's what I'm saying. No, I don't think all of them do, but that's what I'm saying. That is the connotation with the flag, and that is a problem. That is a problem, that people who have those views use that flag to show
Some people do, yes, but if that is the case, and some people who are not of that persuasion believe that that is justification alone not to be proud to be British or not to be proud to be English and subsequently fly the flag, then I'm sorry, they are in the wrong, not the people who are on the far right who just happen to be proud of their country and using it as a guise for possibly some other hideous
I will take to question your idea that those people on the far right are just simply proud of their country.
I don't think they are simply. I think there's some of it.
There is a much deeper and nastier connotation.
There are some nasty connotations there, and I dare say that there'll be some people who fly that flag from that particular political persuasion who would just take one look at my background, religious or otherwise, and they'd absolutely hate me for it. Yeah. But my point is that they don't stop me from being proud to be English.
Yeah. No, and they shouldn't. But I'm just saying that is the thing. It's not just about being... Those groups are not just proud to be English. They want to take England to a place that I don't think anybody else would really want it to be. Well, good luck with that.
There's not enough of them to do that.
I agree. Right, let's have a look at the papers. USA Today. Oh gosh, there's a lot. I love do you know what? American papers really cram stuff on their front page. So let's have a look what they've got here. Pope Francis' attempt to alter the church authority spurred a revolt. Critics viewed his bureaucratic changes as a slippery slope. This doesn't take long, does it, after somebody's died, to start attacking that person's stance?
No, I know. I mean, I said this on Monday when I was sitting in your seat, that obviously that was the day that we heard the news that Pope Francis had died. I said it then, I'll say it again. I didn't always believe in his political views, and I believe that what he tried to do with the church, however forward-thinking and possibly innovative it was, based on that, he was realising that there will be some people from successive generations who probably would turn their back on Catholicism off the back of the traditions that have carried the church to this day and age, without necessarily modernising it every step of the way. I understand his thinking, but at the same time I think there are far more people who value tradition over modernisation. There's I guess maybe a smidgen of room for modernisation, but not too much. And he was very evidently a forward thinker. Not necessarily a bad thing, but I think a touch risky in a religion such as Catholicism, which is quite traditional.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, again, he was just trying to move with the times, and I don't think... I'm not religious in any way, as you know, but I did, you can't help but look at him as a person and think that he was a good man.
Oh, yes,
and wasn't in it for the gold and the glitz and all of that, and that he was a genuinely spiritual Christian man that believed in every word that he was saying, and I think that is unique in itself.
Well, it's certainly a far cry from his predecessor. I mean, with the greatest amount of respect that one can offer towards the likes of Benedict XVI, and again, I don't wish to speak ill of someone who is either dead or of the cloth, but there was definitely something about Benedict XVI that personally, speaking of someone who's not Catholic, I couldn't really take to. Yet Pope Francis, I absolutely thought that's a good man.
Yeah. I agree. You don't have to. Like you said, I don't think you have to be in tune with that religion to look at him and know that his whole ethos was honest, was from the heart.
Absolutely.
Store owners feel helpless as price hikes near. International groceries brace for tariff impact. It's taken a little while for this to seep through because people had stock that they needed to get rid of before they could start buying more stock, and they're now realising that stock, if it's international grocery, will come with a hefty price rise. Yeah,
look, I recognise that there are people who don't care very much for what Donald Trump has done with tariffs and the knock-on effects that it will have for smaller businesses and indeed small shop owners and what have you, but I understand what he's trying to do. I just don't personally think he's gone about it the right way. So I get that he wants to encourage Americans to buy American and to sort of manufacture in America. But very much like my argument with the Net Zero Brigade, you can't force these kind of things on people through taxes. You have to encourage it organically. And organically, it could happen. You know, if he was to sort of say, for example, offer tax breaks for people who want to maybe set up manufacturing businesses in America, and then offer, shall we say, tax breaks so that people can offer American goods at a cheaper rate, then you'll find that people will automatically veer towards it. You don't have to tax the bejesus or tariff the bejesus out of foreign imports, because all that's going to do is obviously drive up prices for Americans who have no choice at the moment but to buy these foreign products.
But there will always be foreign products, right? I mean, you won't be able to manufacture everything in the US.
No, but then that's why I say that if you offer tax, if you offer tax incentives for people who do build certain things in America, then that's the way to do that, rather than to actually tax foreign imports. Or put tariffs on foreign imports, because then that solves the problem.
But those things that are manufactured in the US will end up being incredibly expensive anyway, because even if people are making them, because you can't fund these things forever. You can't give tax breaks forever, because that is just not a realistic marketplace. And Americans will insist on a minimum wage, and they will insist on a certain standard of living.
No, but tax breaks
is like,
don't
go and
charge.
Work in a factory.
No, but then tax breaks are things like don't charge VAT on American goods. That's the way around that. It doesn't mean that people's wages have to suffer.
That can't be done forever. Anything that is manufactured in the US will be more expensive than if it was manufactured outside of the US.
But you could put some sort of time frame on it. You could say, for example, like the first 10 years of the rebuilding of American manufacturing, you don't put VAT on it.
It's all pie in the sky, Phil. How are they going to... First of all, there isn't a bad unemployment rate in America. Where are they going to get the people from to work in these factories? There's 4%. 2% is the sort of like the cost of doing business, if you like. So there's 2% unemployment. So and those people don't want to go and work in factories. So what are you going to do? And then you've got CEOs not wanting to set up factories in America because there's all sorts of health and safety and health insurance that they've got to pay that they don't have to pay if they're doing it in Mexico or Canada or anywhere else, if they've got their own factory there. Then you've got the very real problem. But those incentives are so expensive that it becomes nonsensical. It doesn't work. You talk to any economist about returning manufacturing to the US, this great pipe dream, and none of it adds up. It doesn't add up. It
at the
won't
moment,
make
but
sense.
That might just be because the law doesn't necessarily work in their favour, but it doesn't mean that you
like
can't
human
change
rights and stuff, like, you know, minimum pay. Those are laws that are good things.
So it's okay. So it's okay for people in other countries to sort of be subject to not necessarily getting, you know, access to the same human rights that we all take advantage of in the West. It's okay for those.
Well, that's not the point. That's not the point. I agree with that. I don't think it is fair that people are treated that way. But
then that's the only reason it's cheap.
But you've got people in China who've got in a lot of cases 900 million have been taken out of poverty in China. There's a burgeoning middle class in China. It's growing, which is why they can't get a lot of. Oddly enough, they're not. These middle classes are not putting their children into sort of doing sports and things, so you've got an issue with that, but that's another story. But you've got a situation where China is where America was, let's say 100 years ago, and America wants to go back there. But there are laws in place in America about minimum wage, health and safety, all of those things. The only way to fight China is to take those away.
Well, look, something's got to give if the West wants to survive in the way that we all knew and loved it. You know, the bottom line is that we for so many years have systematically handed over bits of the economy to the Far East. Yeah, maybe, but then that's where what we have to address, and we have to work out sort of what it is that we can do to make it cheaper, offer more incentives in the West. And my argument is that by putting tariffs on other countries in a bid to try and encourage businesses to set up shop in the US is clearly not the way to do it, because all that's going to do is make the goods that we have no choice, we Americans have no choice but to go abroad for, more expensive. So that's what I'm saying, so whatever Donald Trump's intentions are, and I do understand them, I believe he's going about it the wrong way.
Yeah, well, definitely. According to every single person who looks at economics, he definitely is. Right, let's take a quick break, and Phil and I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it's Petrie here with you until, well, we've got Phil here until the top of the hour. So we need to be looking at Thursday's newspapers. And the Metro.
Yes.
Fans conned in great rock and roll swindle. At least 5,000 victims as rip-off criminals cash in on reunion tour fever. This is a £2 million Oasis scam. I don't really understand how this works. Do you understand how this worked?
Well, I have to tell you that I actually almost fell subject to it.
Really?
Because I didn't know we were going to talk about this. I mean, obviously I knew it was on the front page of the Metro when I saw it, but it's a friend of mine who was trying to organise a group of us to go to get Oasis tickets, and we tried, like everyone else, at the time when they had released them on their website or on the Ticketmaster website, and no other ticket sites are available. But anyway, we queued up like others, some of us waiting hours on end to get tickets. One person out of a group of about 10 of us managed to get tickets. The rest of us failed in our efforts. And this chap who was determined to organise it for all of us messaged our little WhatsApp group and said, I've got someone who's interested in trying to sell some tickets to us, X amount each, there's 4 tickets available, who's interested, let me know as soon as possible. Put my hat in the ring. I said, yeah, okay, yeah, why not indeed? We tried to get them. All right, it's a bit expensive, but look, do you know what? How many more times are we going to get a chance to go and see? Yeah. Absolutely, let's go for it. And a couple of us all put in our names and said, yeah, let's do it. Anyway, sent over the bank details, said, right, this is how much. And just before he was about to transfer the money, he spotted something. I can't remember off the top of what it was, but he spotted something that wasn't quite right about what this person had said about the tickets. And so he said, guys, don't transfer me the money. I think this is a scam. And he looked into it, and sure enough, it was.
Wow, that was close.
But he just spotted it. Now, of course, those of us who he approached to say, are you interested in getting tickets? Of course we would have paid, because why would we doubt him?
Yeah.
But it wasn't his fault. If there was someone who was very convincing the other end who was potentially trying to scam him and others, and he was just going to innocently transfer the money, well, then of course we were going to do it and possibly lose a couple of £100 each. But anyway, like, the upshot was he spotted it in time, and we didn't.
Wow, that was really lucky.
But, yeah, I genuinely don't remember, because I was just thinking at the time, I thought, oh, well, I didn't have Oasis tickets when I woke up this morning. I don't have them as going to bed this evening, so I've not missed anything. But I just remember that was my thought process. But yeah, actually, sort of in terms of the details of what had happened and what went wrong, I just remember him sending out a very urgent message stopping us.
Absolutely have not. I mean, the average loss is £436.
Yeah, so I think we were quite lucky, because we were told it was a couple of
One
hundred
person
each.
lost £1,700. And so there was somebody just lying and basically saying they had tickets, but they didn't.
So I think that's what it was. I believe it was. I believe that's what it was. I wonder whether or not maybe sort of what he's doing a bit of digging and asking questions to this person and they weren't answering, or they were maybe being a bit sort of coy with their answers. I don't know. But one way or another, yeah, he did spot it. And look, of course, you know, but the truth is, I'm not in the least bit surprised that people try these. I never condone it. I don't encourage it. But I'm not in the least bit surprised that people do it, because the awful truth is that there are just no ramifications for this.
But
if it were down to me, you know, it should be that individual would be thrown in prison.
But they rely, don't they, on FOMO, that real fear of missing out, and the speed. You know, I know that even when I've bought tickets for theatre shows through legitimate sites, there's a clock on it, and you have to book that ticket by the time the clock. And that again is that whole you know, I really want this ticket.
Yeah,
and,
but I was said part of that is also a sales thing as well. Make no mistake. You know, yes, of course, but they absolutely pander to people terrified of missing out. And they will encourage you to buy it within 5 minutes to make sure that if you, basically, that you've parted with your money, frankly.
But it's that rush though, isn't it? They rely on people being that desperate to go and see. Hello,
oh, look, someone's put an appearance.
Yeah, he's just got
2 seconds, they're back.
2 seconds, he wanted my arm to sleep on. But it's so awful because people are so excited and they get really carried away, and then suddenly
it's disgusting. This is the whole point. I don't understand why there is no punishment for these kind of people. You know, how is it we live in a day and age where someone is allowed to get away with, even if they don't get any money out of them, get away with scamming someone? That alone, regardless if they earn any money, should be punishable.
Yeah, it is.
Simple as.
It's disgusting. It's theft. Right, the FT. We have Rachel Reeves, of course, who's in Washington, D.C. at the moment. Chancellor is still hopeful for a pact, although Trump has given absolutely no sign of giving us a special deal. No yielding on food standards, which I'm really happy about, because I was very worried that Rachel Reeves would go there and say, all right, well, we'll take that rotten old chlorinated chicken, you know.
I'm veggie, I wouldn't eat it, but for goodness sake.
I know, seriously, there's got to be a bar, hasn't there, that we just don't go below. So she's not going to compromise on food standards, which I'm really pleased about. Well, as I keep saying, that if we did dilute our food standards, we would then not be able to sell food products into the EU, because they're not going to dilute their food standards, so it would leave us out of pocket. But she is prepared to cut tariffs on US car imports. Who buys US cars?
Well, Ford, I suppose.
But we make them here.
Yes, I guess. But I mean, I don't completely understand sort of like the ins and outs of it. I don't know whether or not we import any parts from America. I genuinely don't know. But it's still, I mean, it's obviously an American brand, and there will be some part. Mind you, having said that, Ford is very different in this country than it is in America. If you actually look at the models that are ready, willing and available in America versus the Fords that are over here, they're almost, you'd be forgiven for thinking it was a different manufacturer, because Ford in America is much more about the pickup trucks and the SUVs and the big cars, whereas over here it's much more about the runarounds.
Yeah, but that's interesting, isn't it? Because I don't think we want the pickups and the big...
God, no.
And we can't afford the petrol in them either.
No, they're horrible.
Yeah. So you can drop the tariffs, but doesn't mean we're going to buy them, right?
I quite like the fact that most of the British cars have steering wheels. In America, it seems like an optional extra. So you just drive on a straight road. Look, you don't need it over there.
And also, as long as you've got a bumper sticker that tells people what your IQ is as well, that's always...
As long as you've got a bumper sticker that says about the home of common sense and Mike Graham's Morning Glory, that's all that matters.
They will never say that. But yeah, I don't know. I think that I don't think it is going to make us buy more big American cars. But Downing Street said that upholding the ban on hormone-treated beef and chlorine-dipped chicken remains a red line. That sounds delicious.
Kentucky Fried Swimming Pool, yummy.
I wonder why people don't want to buy American chicken.
Look, I can't say that I've ever thought of any food that is transatlantic as appetizing, because to be honest with you, when I was lucky enough to be in Canada in September, last year, and I had never been to Canada before, so I was very much looking forward to it. Went around a bit, tried. Honest to God, the food was the biggest letdown.
Was it?
Absolutely. And I went all over the place, and I didn't go to anywhere that was sort of like your middle of the road. I avoided chains or anything like that, and I know most American or transatlantic brands because, well, I sort of like spent a lot of time growing up bouncing between here and America, so I know a lot of those American brands. But it's more about how I was determined just to sort of try and find decent food. And honestly, there was about 1 or possibly 2 meals that I thought, this is really good. The rest, I thought, was nothing I can't get in London. No. If not better.
Well, that's a shame.
So no, but the point being, I'm just isn't it?
The maple syrup's good.
The maple syrup was divine. Oh my God! Don't get me wrong. Don't roll out the violins or anything like that. My point being is that I don't think it's any great loss if we don't import a load of American food.
I agree. I don't want the American food. I mean, I've been to America as well, and the food in LA. Anyway,
it's so true.
And Vegas. Oh, rough. Let's take a break. We'll be back in a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
And right now on Talk, it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Phil Dave, and we are looking at Thursday's newspapers. So the Daily Star, they've had a sense of humour failure recently. The last couple of weeks, they've obviously got a new sub-ed or something, because they're not entertaining me. As they have always done. So
actually, it's the same with the Metro. Really, Metro has been quite clever with headlines for a long time, but yet not so much.
Yeah, they must be on holiday. And the normal sub must be on holiday, because the Daily Star, you've let me down again, and it won't stand. So can we get it sorted for next week, please? The Star is saying Plunder Hall. I mean, that isn't even good for Wonderwall, is it? It's just not good.
Look, you got it was supposed to be Wonderwall. I didn't even get that at first.
Yeah, it's not that good. Oasis fans lose $2 million in dodgy summer reunion ticketing scams. But there's no seagulls. There's no...
Oh, thank heavens for that, for a change.
There's no ticket boffins. Yeah, but it's not.
Well, okay, so let's see.
Story.
Let's see whether or not we can try and sort of come up with some clever headline on behalf of the Star and others that are missing out, because both the Metro and the Star have gone with the Oasis scam. Yeah. So let's see whether or not, is there anything that we could come up with? What else apart from Wonderwall? What else is there?
I mean, they're looking more like Ant and Dec every day, aren't they, those two? I don't know. Look, it's just not a very inspiring story from the Star, so I want them to sort it out. No. The Daily Express for Thursday. The truth is, he doesn't have the balls.
Tennis balls, this is
tennis
obviously.
Balls. Fired up, no. This is not tennis balls, this is the other kind. Fired up Kemi Badenoch ridiculed Keir Starmer for lacking balls in a Commons onslaught on his shifting views over gender. I think that's possibly a wrong choice of words.
To
accuse somebody of not having balls when you're talking about...
I dare say, yes, it's probably not the most accurate, but I actually don't think it's appropriate anyway, because to me the House of Commons is just such a a bastion of tradition, and I think that to use such crass language is not really appropriate.
No,
I understand what Kemi Badenoch is saying, and I dare say I agree with her, but I certainly don't agree with her choice of language.
And I don't agree that Keir Starmer owes me an apology as a woman. But there you go. She seems to think that he owes women an apology. Right, let's move on to the Daily Telegraph. I can't tell which one's Farage and which one's the bulldog here. They have got very similar faces. They have got very similar faces, which is clearly why that picture was chosen. Come on.
Well, I mean, the difference is the bulldog's got his tongue hanging out, so...
oh, yeah, that's his tie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Anyway, it's a great picture. Nigel Farage, Reform UK party leader, hit the local election campaign trail yesterday, made a whistle-stop tour at Conservative strongholds, accompanied by Sydney, the Red Lion of the Red Lion pub in Hemel Hempstead. Good name for a dog,
Absolutely,
Sydney.
in Hemel Hempstead, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's lovely. Trump.
It's a very handsome-looking bulldog, to be fair.
Yeah, yeah. Which one? Trump, Zelensky to blame for no peace. I am more livid than I can tell you about this whole thing. I am so angry that the audacity of Donald Trump handing absolutely everything to Putin and then blaming Zelensky for not liking it is beyond breathtaking in my view. So Zelensky has to capitulate to every demand that Putin has made, every single one, even though they were invaded. Otherwise, it means that he is to blame for the war. So.
I have long said that I'm not completely convinced that Volodymyr Zelensky has gone about handling the war in the best way possible, but then at the same time, I don't know how I'd handle it if I was in his shoes, and I dare say it's very easy to stand on the sidelines and criticise someone. If you're not in that position, how could you possibly know how you would react? But at the same time, it does feel as though that his popularity has benefited from there being a war, whereas I think before Russia invaded Ukraine, and make no mistake, I'm well aware it was Russia who invaded
Margaret
Ukraine.
Thatcher benefited from the Falkland Islands. It is not unusual. Winston Churchill benefited from the Second World War. It is not unusual.
But it's also not unusual for that to go to someone's head and to feed off it.
Despite all of that, right, let's just put it down to the brass tacks. Ukraine was invaded. Land has been taken from Ukraine by Russia, who nobody saw Ukraine holding off for more than 2 weeks, and they've managed to do it for 3 years. And now, despite all of the losses and the deaths of Ukrainians, they have to hand over all of the land, 20% of their country, to an invading force. And he's supposed to just say, yeah, okay, great.
No, listen, I do not deny that there are many things to be questioned about the way in which Donald Trump is trying to handle the situation in the Ukraine. At the same time,
He's not trying to handle it. He's trying to give Putin everything. He's not trying to handle it. He's bored of it already. He said he's going to walk away. He thought this was going to be easy to sort out. He hasn't even been able to get a ceasefire from Putin. It beggars belief that people are going, oh, just give him the land and then he'll stop. He said that after Crimea, remember?
But it wasn't that long ago, of course, you know, in terms of sort of recent history, that technically speaking Ukraine was part of USSR, and I suppose that sort of that is ultimately, from Putin's perspective, what he's trying to be back in.
But it was recognised as a sovereign state with those borders. It doesn't matter how long ago we were all invaded by somebody at some point, right? Every single country, and borders are borders. It's like Trump saying, well, that fake line that runs between Canada and America. I'm sorry, that's called a border. It has been a recognised, sanctioned, sanctified border of two separate countries, as Ukraine and Russia was as well. You can't just rewrite history because it suits you, and you can't give Russia everything that they want, because they will come back for more. They said Crimea was all they wanted, and then they've taken 20% of Ukrainian land, and they will be back for more.
I completely and utterly agree, because that's exactly my argument when it comes to the argument over the Middle East and borders over there. I'm well aware of it. You know, people say, you know, it was only 70 years ago that certain borders were created in the Middle East. I don't care. They've been created.
Exactly, and it's the same with Ukraine and Russia. So the argument that it once was part of the USSR is absolutely bogus, because it has been sanctified and recognised as Ukrainian soil.
Yeah, but it's not bogus in the eyes of Putin. That's his motivation.
No, in the eyes of the demonic, mad despot Putin. No, probably isn't.
I know. I'm not saying.
Isn't.
I'm not suggesting I'm a champion of Putin, but I'm saying, you know, so that unfortunately there are people who still exist who want to see us go back in time, and I dare say that
I like
Putin
Donald Trump.
There are elements that he wants to turn back the clock on that I don't think are a bad thing. I don't think this is necessarily a good thing. So
I think this is absolutely disgraceful. I think it's absolutely disgraceful, and I wish America would walk away and let somebody else broker the deal, because there is a deal to be done where it doesn't see Putin getting everything he wants, rubbing his hands with glee, taking 5 years off and coming back for more.
What do you think, though, in realistically, whether you've got Russia as having one of the strongest armies in the world, what the answer is?
Well, have they? Because they didn't manage to smash Ukraine. They wanted that whole country.
Yet. No, not yet, they haven't. But that's purely because of Western intervention and
no, but also, no, it's not.
Tons
it's
of money,
Russia didn't have the military it thought it did, and he didn't have the resources he thought he had. And it's not. They would have marched all the way through Ukraine had they been able to, and they obviously were not able to. And what the foreigners gave Ukraine was not very much. We didn't.
I don't know. The resources that Ukraine have
but they weren't able to use
from
them,
the West.
But they weren't able to use them on Russian soil. They were only able to use them on Ukrainian soil.
Yes, but then that's part of fending them off. That's the reason why they haven't
progressed. Yes, but they weren't allowed to defend
enough.
themselves properly by attacking Russia back. So
yes, but because that was terms and conditions, because otherwise they knew if they did that, then the West would be at threat from Russian invasion or Russian attack.
So we'd just throw Ukraine under a bus and just let it there.
No,
and
it's
give up 20% of the land.
No, it's not about throwing them under the bus. But then realistically, what is the alternative? Because we can't keep funding the Ukraine side or efforts of the war indefinitely.
Well, the alternative is that we give Russia what they want, and in 5 years' time be prepared to be buckling down in a trench somewhere.
No, I agree. I don't say that's the answer, but my point is that we can't indefinitely fund the Ukraine efforts in the war.
No,
so
we
what's
can't,
the answer?
For me, the answer is to fund them absolutely properly and let them use that to attack Russia and push them back off their land, because we haven't enabled them. We've given them stuff, and we've tied one hand behind their back.
But if we do that, then we put ourselves at risk, because
we are at risk already. We are at risk. All this is doing is delaying it.
All we're doing is in carte blanche to Putin for then attacking NATO. Then.
But he's going to do that anyway. I mean,
he hasn't done it so far.
Well, only because America so far has been involved in the idea, the theory that they would defend us, but they're not going to defend us now. So we have to make sure that we've got the defences in this country. We are at risk now. Ukraine is the border that is defending us at the moment, and we are not giving them the right resources. We should have, right from the beginning, given them the massive amounts of resources and said, go for it, because Russia was weak then. It wasn't as strong as it thought it was. It wasn't as strong as we thought it was, and they could have been able to push him back and at least get him to the negotiating table.
Okay, but then that was then, this is now. So what do we do now? That's the problem.
Well, what we don't do is give Russia everything they want. That's what we don't do.
I think we can both agree with that. But then what is the alternative? Because
the alternative is, get them at a table and say to Russia, you are not going to get what you want. So where do we draw this line? Okay, if we've got to annex Crimea, then that's what. But you're not having that 20% of the country. We wouldn't give up 20% of this country.
Well, I mean, some might say we already have to other people from other countries, but let's not dwell on that too much. But no, it's more about...
That's not the same thing.
No, but what I'm trying to get at is that unfortunately, at the moment, we are stuck in a stalemate where all we are doing is being a part of a Western conglomerate that is giving resource, whether it be money or military, to Ukraine to help them in their efforts.
Just enough. It's never been. It's never been really substantial enough for them to have done anything but to hold them off. We cannot capitulate to Russia. This is a mistake. It's been done in history before, and it is emphatically a mistake. So whatever Trump is trying to do in appeasing Russia, this is a mistake, and it will cost us all a lot more in the future. So whatever they decide to do, it cannot be to let Russia win.
But it's also going to cost us if we start encouraging or allowing Ukraine to start attacking on Russian soil, because all that's going to do...
Russia has.
I know, but
Russia
two
has.
wrongs
Oh, it's
don't make
all
a right.
No.
But Putin's going to turn around and he's going to say, right, NATO countries have now officially attacked Russia by proxy.
It wouldn't be us, would it?
But he's going to say by
But he
proxy.
hasn't said it. We've already given them weapons,
Because
and
we
they
haven't
fight.
done it yet.
Yeah, but Ukraine are now building their own weapons. We need to support them so that they can do it.
But we
This
do
is a
support
mistake.
them.
This is a mistake, and it will come back. And I'm telling you now, it will be. We will see it as one of the biggest mistakes that we've ever made in the West. Quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
It is Talk, and it's Petrie here, and with me is Phil Dave, and we're looking at Thursday's papers. Let's look at the Daily Mail. It's Gappy Birthday Louis.
Horrible, but possibly accurate.
Yeah, bless him. This is a toothy grin. Well, it's not toothy, is it? There's no teeth there.
He's just lost his
two
junior
front
teeth, that's
Actually,
all it is.
he's got one.
He's got, yeah, one's starting to creep through.
I remember these days with my son. They're so funny. They're so cute. So this is Louis, Prince Louis, who's 7. He's always the one we like, isn't he? The naughty one. And he's lost his 2 front teeth, and his birthday, and it's a great photograph. I expect his mum took that.
She seems to be responsible for a lot of their photography.
She does take a lot. And at the same time, we've got Harry and Meghan in New York.
Yeah, with a very big hand in front of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just saw that.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not, if you're not watching this, then this doesn't make much sense, but it's basically a perspective thing. Someone has shoved their hand in front of the camera, meaning that their hand up looks absolutely enormous. Compared to Harry and Meghan.
Well, I hope they're having a lovely
Meghan looks surprisingly chirpy in that. That's very out of character for her.
I know, it really is.
I mean, maybe someone's waving a load of money at her, I don't know.
It could very well be. I don't know where they're going. Is that New York? Is that Trump Tower key? I don't know. Trump key.
City break, the Sussex is in New York, yes, I don't know. They have got... there you go. Now, there is Who's that? Oh no, that's not one of them. There's a couple of passes that someone's holding on a lanyard, and it says time.
Oh.
And I don't know whether or not that's got something to do with it. Maybe someone in Times Square or something. I don't know.
Love New York. Such a shame. But there you go. The Guardian. Crimea is lost, says Trump. I would agree with that. But does that mean that the rest of that 20% has to be gone as well? And then Andy Flintoff on his struggle to return to health. Is this him now? After that,
yes,
he had a horrendous car crash.
Yeah,
didn't he?
This photo has he's got the scar on his face, so I assume this is a recent photo.
I mean,
but he's incredibly lucky to still be with us, to be honest. So
yeah, I mean, seriously, what a thing to happen just for a TV show as well. Noisy phone users could face a ban on transport.
Hallelujah.
Yeah. And could we make
First thing Liberal Democrats have come out with that I agree with.
Yeah, bless them though. They're never going to.
I was going to say it's never going to come to fruition.
It's never going to come to fruition.
But yes.
But I think we all support that, don't we?
Yeah. Well, the copy says a party of party poopers or defenders of the quiet minority. Either way, the Liberal Democrats are redefining political battle bus by proposing a ban on people playing music and videos on their phone speaker on public transport. Hallelujah!
But why would they do that anyway? Why haven't they got headphones?
I have absolutely no idea. But the truth is that most people in this day and age are too scared to say anything.
Yeah,
you know,
that is true.
Absolutely. I see someone who does, or I hear someone doing that, if they're sat next to me, the best I do is I'll just stare at them. And I don't care.
No.
But I just think to myself, why don't I say something?
Because teenagers are terrifying.
I'm not surprised. They've been given far too much power.
Yeah. Other countries have already imposed bans. In February, a man in France was fined 170 quid by rail staff for making a phone call on a speaker in a quiet area
I
of the
don't want to hear
non-station.
someone's conversation.
I know. Why do they do that?
And to anyone who argues and says, well, it's no difference to speaking to someone who's in person. No, I'm sorry, I completely disagree. Because what you hear...
Is that what people say?
I've heard some people use that as the excuse. Well, what's the difference? You know, if someone sat next to them and they're having a conversation with them, you're not only going to hear one person's conversation, you're going to hear both sides. But it's not true, because the difference is when you're actually hearing the audio of someone speaking out aloud, it's far less offensive on the ears to something that doesn't mean anything to you, whether it's a phone conversation or a bit of music or whatever it is through a speaker. The reason why people, when they're listening to their own speakers, can't necessarily determine the difference between how awful the audio sounds and offensive the ears is because there's an interest in it. It's an interest in them actually speaking to the person at the other end, someone they obviously care about or want to speak to, or music they actually want to hear. But when you add sort of a combination of the tinny quality of audio
actually, it really gets
versus something that you can't stand or you don't want to listen to, there's no interest, and therefore you can't turn the other cheek. You have to hear this awful racket. It's just awful.
I agree. I mean, the thing is, though, I love listening to people rowing. Not on phone, but in real life. If there's I'm like, oh, I know. In a coffee shop, I might lean backwards and...
Oh, yeah, I know, have a little listen.
Have a little listen.
Do you think people have heard us squabble?
Probably.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly. PM pressed to let young Europeans work in the UK.
Grown.
Keir Starmer is under pressure from more than 60 new Labour MPs to allow thousands of young Europeans to live and work in the UK. This is the under 30 visa. 18 to 30-year-olds to travel freely. It would go both ways, obviously. And it would definitely help with the hospitality industry, wouldn't it?
Look, if it's of benefit to us, then I would look at the positives.
I think it would be nice. I'd like my son to be able to, you know, if he wanted to go and work over in Europe somewhere.
He can.
But not without under this scheme, he'd be able to do it just with his passport.
Right.
But
it's the same with going any other country.
No, you're only allowed to be there for so many days.
Okay. But you can apply for visas to other countries to go and work there if you have to, if you want to.
Yeah, but
there are things already in place.
But there would be barriers to it, like the kind of job or the kind of money you'd have to earn, whereas this would be about travelling and working in pubs.
No, I don't want a free-for-all.
Oh, I'd love it. The more young Europeans just here for a couple of years, going home afterwards?
No, because this is part of the reason why Brexit was such a contentious subject. The reason is that in this country it's a far more attractive prospect to earn the money and come and live here. So there's no incentive. If it was an even keel, if everyone got the same, regardless of what country they're in, yeah, maybe, then I might be up for it. Because if I thought for a second that someone who sort of, say, wants to go, for argument's sake, go and work in Poland was going to earn pro rata exactly the same amount of money.
Well, they would nowadays, actually, because Poland's economy has been lifted by being in the EU.
Poland is an example.
Yeah,
but I mean, anyway,
but
whatever
France,
country.
Spain, Italy, they'd all be comparative earnings.
Within reason, I don't think we'd get exactly access to the same benefits as people would here.
Well, what, in terms of healthcare and stuff? I suppose, I don't know. But anyway, I think that'll end up happening anyway.
All we can do is hope not.
The Top Gear horror ordeal, Freddie, part of me wished I'd died. Oh gosh, that's very grim, isn't it? And The Independent, Trump take the peace deal now or risk losing everything. And The Times, ministers prepare to cut car and farm tariffs to ease US trade. Oh, a daily dose of peanuts can help overcome lethal allergy.
That's just nuts.
Very good. I like that.
You're welcome.
That's very, very good. Phil Dave, thank you very much indeed for coming in and fighting with me as usual. And Humphrey's now just moving slightly. But thank you very much indeed. I'll see you very, very soon. Coming up, it's just you and me. And I suppose what I want to know really is, are we proud to be English? And what is being English? What is English culture for you? Convince me that there is such a thing as English culture. I'm really happy that I'm British, really happy that I wasn't born anywhere else. I'm just so grateful for that. But I'm not sure I'm proud of it. I don't know if I'm proud of that fact. I'm just incredibly pleased that is the situation that I was luckily born into. But why don't we celebrate St. George's Day like other nations celebrate their Saints' Day? Why don't we sort of get that feeling of, this is amazing, let's celebrate? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. Calls are charged at the national rate. And you can message me on 87222.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello and a very good morning to you. It is Petrie here with you through until 1 o'clock. So we're talking this morning about St George's Day, which is officially today, but let me just read this. Church rules dictate that any Saint's Day that falls on a Holy or Easter week is instead moved to the following week, typically to the first Monday. So it is officially St George's Day today, but allegedly it'll be celebrated on Monday. And it got me thinking, really, as to why we don't really celebrate St George's Day, because it is officially St George's Day today. And driving all the way from west to South London, I didn't see any evidence of that. There was sort of no flags, no pubs seemed to be celebrating. Maybe they will on Monday, who knows? But we don't tend to, do we? We don't tend to make it a big deal, unlike St Patrick's Day, where just for that one day we all have a little bit of Irish. We're all a little bit Irish, aren't we? We'll go, oh no, we'll go and celebrate St Patrick's Day, because it's fun and it's joyous and it's joyful and it's alcoholic and it's, you know, lots of people dressed in green and all sorts of things. And then you have St David's Day in Wales, which people seem to celebrate. You have all the politicians that are rolled out wearing a daffodil, right? You notice that they wear a little daffodil in their lapel, and then St Andrew's Day with the Scots. And it also got me thinking about what is our culture? What even would we be celebrating? Is there anything about British culture that is really worth celebrating? I suppose we have to identify it first. Anne says, what about Morris dancing? The English traditional music goes just as far back as Scottish, Welsh or Irish. I suppose so. That's not the first thing I think of. I mean, when you think of Scottish music, traditional and cultural, it's immediate, isn't it? Whereas what we're saying, the accordion is the national music, the accordion music. Oh, I don't know. It's not got the same ring to it. But anyway, listen, give me a call. 0344 499 1000. Let's talk to Sean, who's in Oxford. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Petrie. How are you?
I'm extremely well. How are you?
I'm okay.
Good.
Okay.
So, St George's Day, did you or will you be celebrating it?
I always do.
Oh.
I've been here from 1970.
Okay.
I came here when I was only 8 to 9 months old.
Oh, wow.
With my mum. My dad came earlier in 69. He's a doctor. And I feel that this has become a very sensitive issue. I'm not white. I'm brown. I'm British Asian, British Hindu. But I've always celebrated St George's Day. And I feel English like, you know, any other English person in England.
As you should.
Why shouldn't I feel proud?
As you should. Yeah, absolutely. And you're proud to be English.
Yes.
What are you?
Well, I mean,
what are you proud of?
English culture, English way of life, etiquettes, manners, the way we behave. I mean, it's become very sort of like a sensitive issue through the years. There's some sort of guilt. There's some sort of being ashamed. Things have evolved. I mean, we can't go back to, 50s, 60s. I mean, we can all be nostalgic, but things have changed.
Yeah.
We have different religions, from different faiths now. Like when the discussion goes like this is a Christian country, that makes me upset and angry to some extent, because are we still a Christian country We have people from the Jewish faith, Hindu faith, Muslim faith. It's a broad church now.
It is, but I believe the numbers would say that the majority would declare themselves as Christian. That in just majority numbers, but and of course the king is the head of the church, etc.
Yes.
But what is it about English? Describe to me English culture to you. What is it to be English?
That for each individual is the way they feel, you know, the way they see themselves. It's an intricate thing for any individual. Like, say, for example, I'll give 2 examples. Like, if we go to a football match or cricket match, who are we supporting? Which team are we supporting? So, say, for example, I'm going to a football match and I'm supporting England in the World Cup. And then when I see cricket, I'm supporting England. Say just in June, July, we've got England versus India. So I would be supporting England all the way.
Okay.
I'm not going to support India. My loyalty is with England.
Even though India is the better team?
It's not about better team. You have to support your own country. My brother, Neil, was born in Huddersfield in England. Mm. So, but I was born in Calcutta, in Kolkata. So, say, for example, a political party like Reform, you know, the leader, Nigel Farage, would he see me as English? Or somebody from another party, would they see me as English? They may say, no, you know, he's not white, so how can he be English? He's Indian, but I'm not Indian.
No, you're not. And you see, that is really interesting to me, that you have a loyalty to a country that may not have the same loyalty to you. That you see yourself
yes,
as...
That's what makes me upset.
Yeah.
That's what makes me upset. That when I'm giving my loyalty, my trust to English authority, to English law, to England, why is our own country against us in many ways? The institution itself.
I agree. So that really does interest me even more, that you have such loyalty to Britain, England. You have such an enormous loyalty to the country that you've been in since you were 7 months old. I mean, even your brother, who was born here, there will be some people who would not see him as being English.
Well, there are some political parties or some political individuals like Rupert Lowe who would say that somebody born here, like this discussion is going on in America right now.
Right now, birthright citizenship.
The president of America, Donald Trump, is saying that he's going to take away the birthright from American citizens.
Yeah.
Children or babies who are born in America.
Yeah.
For particular families, he will take the birthright away.
Yeah, and retrospectively as well. So because what he's going to suggest is that they would they would have the citizenship of the mother.
Yes. So isn't that unlawful? Going against
it's against it goes against the Constitution. I think it's the 14th Amendment of the Constitution.
Yes.
So yes, it is unlawful. But it depends.
But these are very sensitive issues, Petrie.
Very.
And there's one point also I further want to make. Say, for example, when I was young, I saw 2 individuals specifically playing James Bond, Sean Connery and Sir Roger Moore. Mm-hmm. Now, when Sir Roger Moore came off the cliff in Spy Who Loved Me with the British flag, didn't that make us all proud? That scene when he skis off the cliff,
I guess
and
so.
the parachute starts to open up, and then the British emblem is floating in the air. That makes me proud. So, I mean, if I were to be in the RAF or the Royal Marines, I'll be also supporting the flag. Mm. So like, for example, the British character James Bond, as I was speaking about Mr. Roger Moore, who played James Bond, I would be representing Britain, Great Britain,
Of course you would.
England, and I will be having the flag with me. So the character itself, like when they say the character is English, because Ian Fleming made the character an English character, a personality and English person, individual, but he was Scottish himself.
Mm.
And he gave the character to Sean Connery to play, who's Scottish, also from Edinburgh.
But when you question, though, the loyalty that this country has to you, I'm surprised that would make that, because that doesn't make me proud on your behalf. The country that you're loyal to potentially could not be loyal to you, or institutionally you feel already isn't loyal to you. So you see, that's what doesn't make me proud. Yeah, and that doesn't make me proud. But it hasn't put you off feeling the way you do.
Why would it? I think there was a film by Robert Redford, The Last Castle, where basically there was a fight going on in the jail, and I think he was a prisoner of some sort. I mean, it was like a political sort of like theme to it. And at the very end of the scene, he holds the American flag to the last point. And that made me sort of feel that, my goodness, till his point that he's dying, he's still upholding the American flag.
Yeah.
So, being English, to my dying day, I should be holding the English flag. Why wouldn't I? Why shouldn't I?
That's really interesting.
You see how deeply this is important.
I do. I see. I really do. And I'm
in England, and who is brought up in England, how this is very important for the institution to respect people who are loyal to the country.
I absolutely agree with you. But like I said to you, it doesn't make me proud that is not, reciprocated, because as born in England, generational, way back, half Scottish, half Cornish, all the way back as far as you can go, really. It doesn't make me more English than you. In fact, you are more English than me, because you're more proud of being English than...
The issue is we're not having conversations nowadays.
Yeah, true.
We are not talking to each other.
Yeah.
We are not speaking to each other. Most of us are on the mobile phones, looking at anything or for updates on Twitter or social media. I mean, and also, I mean, this is fundamental for our country. We have, ever since the late 80s or 90s, we have 24-hour news. And that is bothering me, really, because if we have 24-hour news, which can't be stopped right now, it's like a machine, it's a machinery, that anything or everything becomes news, and within seconds the environment, the climate, or something changes, and that affects everyone. And I was listening into your conversation with Phil, Dave. I know I don't want to move away from the topic. But when you were discussing with Phil regarding Russia and Ukraine, I mean, there's many points I disagree with you, Petrie.
You're allowed to?
No, I know. But isn't it also the fault of the Ukrainians? It takes two to tango. Isn't it the fault of the Ukrainians to prolong this war? It's affecting the whole world. It's the global world.
Was it the fault of France when it was invaded by Germany? Was it the fault of...
No, I'm not saying maybe the word was not right, but still, maybe fault is not the right word. But it takes two to tango.
But what do you do if you're attacked, Sean?
Yes.
If you're attacked and your country is under threat, then you defend yourself.
Defend yourself. It's just like Israel. Israel has every right to defend itself if it's attacked. But then the thing is, it goes on. If revenge, say for example revenge, you can respond, but revenge is also not good. It's not healthy.
No, but it's not. Ukraine isn't seeking revenge. Ukraine is trying to stop the advancement of Russian troops,
I don't know.
and they are not guilty of defend. They are defending
I
themselves.
see Zelensky. I wouldn't trust Zelensky, and I don't personally see Zelensky as a leader, proper leader, because Ukrainian people are dying, soldiers are dying, people are dying,
and that's not
the negotiation.
That's Russia's fault, though. Do you know how this war would end tomorrow if Russia stopped attacking Ukraine? Because Ukraine isn't attacking Russia. If Russia just stopped.
But Ukraine is now.
They're defending themselves.
3 years back.
They're defending themselves.
Now.
If Russia stopped, Ukraine would have no reason to fire another bullet. Do you see? Because they're not trying. Because they're not. Yeah. Because let me explain, Sean. Ukraine isn't trying to take Russian land. Ukraine just wants its own land. So if Russia stopped, then Ukraine would stop, because they're not advancing into Russia. So that's why
there's a history. The thing is, there's a history between Russia and Ukraine. They have families. They have blood connections.
Yeah. I mean, there's history between lots of countries around the world.
Ireland. You can't stop Ireland from being part, Northern Ireland, being part of the UK, England.
Well, personally, I think one day that won't be the case. But I see very much that Russia is the aggressor, and if they stopped, it's like if somebody stopped punching me in the face, I wouldn't have to kick them, right? I mean, it's as simple as that. And that's the way I see it. And Ukraine doesn't want any part of Russia. It doesn't want.
I'm not appeasing Russia, Petrie, and I'm not saying Putin is the good guy in this story. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying Zelensky has a role to play as a leader, if he is a leader, and he should also see where he's making mistakes himself.
Yes, and what he wants.
The war won't end. We will not come to a conclusion. Peace.
No, but why should he give up 20% of Ukraine just because Russia won't negotiate any other way?
That I'm not discussing here about who owns how much. That is different. That's for the politicians to decide, and that's for the President of USA to decide. I'm not getting into all those areas.
Yeah, yeah. Look,
I'm just giving a different perspective.
Yeah, it's a different perspective. I see very much that Russia is the attacking force here, and Ukraine is a defending force. Very easy to stop a war if Russia wanted to, and that is just to stop shooting people. Great to talk to you, Sean. There's Sean. He is proud to be English, even though he believes that England may not be proud of him. Give me a call, 0344 499 1000.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock. And we are talking this morning about St George's Day. Confusing though it is this year, because yesterday, I mean as in like now-ish, was the official St George's Day, but it would probably be celebrated on Monday. And I'm interested to know if you have or will be celebrating St George's Day, and what there is to celebrate, and what is English culture. I don't even think I could say what British culture is. I really don't know. I don't know. If our culture is being really good at queuing, that's not that great, is it? I mean, I think we're probably Olympic level tutters. I certainly am. Tutting. I think that's quite an English thing, isn't it? Going, I'm really good at tutting. And queuing, I'm quite good at queuing. And I'm also reasonably good, no, I'm very good actually, at apologising to somebody who's bumped into me. But is that what English culture is? I don't know what English, how I would describe being English. I mean, is it because we're, stiff upper lip? Is it because we're emotionless? I don't recognise that really. So what is it? What is it that makes us English? And do you celebrate that on St George's Day? Because we know the Irish do on St Patrick's Day, and we know the Scots do on St Andrews, and the Welsh do on St David. So they tend to have a bit more, I don't know, a bit more culture maybe. I'm not saying they're more cultured, but I think there's more culture to you can definitely think of Scotland, for example, and think of the culture of Scotland. I think easier than you can the culture of England. Anyway, what is it that makes you English, and will you be celebrating St George's Day? You've had two chances. It could have been yesterday and Monday, so you could double bubble it if you want. Let's talk to Kevin now, who's in Hull. Morning, Kevin.
Good morning, Petrie.
How are you?
Yes, really good. Yesterday you were talking about autism.
Yeah.
And this, that and the other. I just finished a 14-hour shift, of which 7 hours was extreme autism.
Oh, you work with autistic people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the flags.
Right.
Okay. I believe in our society, it's St. George's Day. He was a saint. Mm-hmm. Okay. Unfortunately, in the country we live in, the people will not realise a saint as in religion.
We are still overwhelmingly, most people would identify as Christian, overwhelmingly in number.
Yeah, well, personally I disagree, but what I'm saying is the Union Jack, I lived in Accrington, 20-odd years ago, and if you put a Union Jack out your window or hung it outside your house, the police would come around and take it down.
The Union flag? Why the Union flag? I mean, that not the English flag, the white with the red cross, which is the English flag, but you mean the Union flag?
Yeah. I think the thing is, what I'm trying to say, if you just give me a bit of space, is the Union Jack is a symbol of free countries.
Yeah.
Yeah? You've been in the military.
Yeah. Well, I've worked with them, yeah.
Yeah. And you know which way to hang it.
Yes. I probably would give it a decent hash.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is basically, forget about the religion. We are the UK, we are multi-religious society.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're proud of living in the country, put the Union Jack out.
Listen, I would agree. I don't think it has to be the Cross of St George, does it?
No.
The Union flag is perfectly fine. It says everything it needs to, and I like the fact that we are, you know, a united kingdom. As much as people try to break it apart, I'm very proud. I like the fact that it's a united kingdom. So I agree with you, Kevin. I think just put the Union flag out. That's fine. It's only a jack, by the way, just in case you're wondering why I'm calling it a flag. It's only a jack when it's on an ocean-going vessel.
I do know that. I lost some friends in the Falklands on the ship.
There you go. So it's only a Union Jack when it's on board a ship.
That's correct. And you are. And you are. I will never cross you on that one.
No, I was just saying because people will be wondering why I keep saying flag instead of Jack. But listen, I agree with you. If you're worried about hanging the Cross of St George, then don't hang the Union flag. It's fine.
Well, it's a united. That's what England is. It's the cross of every country. That's what the flag became.
That's what the flag is. Yeah, absolutely.
It's not religious.
No.
No, it's not religious. St George's is. I respect people to hang it out and have their own thing, but all I'm saying is we're a multi-spiritual society, and to hang the Union Jack out is to say, yeah, we're proud to be here.
Yeah. I'm very grateful to be here in this country. When you look at the state of some other countries at the moment, I'm so grateful that I was born here and belong here, and I am here. But I'm not entirely sure that I'm proud of it. I think that's a different thing, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I'm not going there. No, I'm not going there. I agree, and. Oh, what would I say? If Stephen Fry was sat next to you, what would he say? Sir
Stephen Fry. I don't know. Yeah. He could say anything. He could read a shopping list and I'd be happy. I don't know what he'd say. I don't know. He might say the same. Why are we proud to be English? I mean, I suppose the laws, the protections that we give people, those are things to be proud of. But when you see laws being ebbed away and changed, it's not an ongoing feature, perhaps. I don't know. Kevin, it's always lovely to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed for that. I'm going to go for a very quick break, but I will be back in just a moment.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good morning. This is Talk and it's Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. Let me read a couple of messages. I agree with this, Darren. This is Darren in Preston. Says, I think nobody does pomp and pageantry like the English. When you think of the streets lined in London for major royal events, even how happy people look at Wimbledon, for example, and other sporting events. English breakfasts, roast dinners, pubs, the English bulldog, etc. all make me proud to be English. I relish St George's Day. Yeah, roast dinners. I think that would be my last meal. I think that would probably be my last meal on this planet if I could choose. Kaz says, happy Easter and all that. I do have a flag and my landlord asked me to take it down for being offensive. You can't even be patriotic in this country without upsetting someone else, and it really boils my gears. There's a mixed metaphor there, which I love a mixed metaphor, by the way. However, I've had a shepherd's pie. Oh, I love a shepherd's pie. Or actually, cottage pie. For dinner, and a few pints of London Pride while wearing my England shirt. I did my bit. So there you go. That's from Kaz. But I agree there, Darren, about the pomp and pageantry. We really do that well. I mean, I don't know if that's much to write home about, but we are really good at it. Another Kevin in Basingstoke this time. Hello, Kevin.
Hello. We're like buses, aren't we?
Yeah, don't see one for ages, and then all at once, nothing but. So, Kevin, what about you with St George's Day? Are you a celebrator of being English?
To be honest, I don't need a special day to celebrate. I mean, what are we exactly celebrating to be English? I mean,
I don't know.
You was talking about the Union Jack. I mean. But I mean, we're a union, but I mean, we've never been more divided, have we?
No, seems so.
And I think it's by design.
So do I.
It is that we're definitely being split down the middle.
We're being manipulated at a government level.
Yeah, St George. I mean, he's. I mean, how many people know that he wasn't British? He was
Turkish.
He was Roman. He was born in Turkey. Wasn't
he was Turkish. That's right.
And I mean, he wasn't a saint for 1,000 years. I think he was made a saint in 1940 something.
Yeah, I think you're right.
By King George III or something like that. I'm not sure. I can't really remember. But so, I mean, why are we celebrating this man? I mean, he was a Christian, but I mean, that's the only link that we've got to him, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm confused as well. You know, when you find out that he was actually Turkish, I don't know. But look, let's forget St George. But is there a day that we should celebrate being English as opposed to being British? I consider myself British, I think.
Well, I'm not English anyway.
Are you not?
I'm half Scottish.
Oh, I'm half Scottish.
English.
Yeah, me too.
So, you know, does that mean I can't celebrate it?
Yes, it does. How dare you? Don't even think about it. You're not even allowed to drink tea without a nip of scotch in it. No, listen, I'm half Scottish, half English, and I would consider myself, I've lived in England most of my life, but I would consider myself British.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm proud to be British, but I'm proud to be or also come from a country that's multicultural. I know that's not very popular on this channel, but I am. I don't value people. I don't judge people on which piece of land they was born at. I judge them on who they are.
Me too.
And what they believe and what they represent. I don't. It's not about.
Well, you know that's where I stand as well.
Yes, I do.
Yeah, you do. And look, you know, that's why I was fascinated by Sean, who phoned in and said that he was, you know, very proud to be English, but also aware that England probably wasn't as accepting of him. So I found that really interesting.
I didn't get that. Why wasn't they accepting of him then?
Well, because he's Asian British. He was born in Calcutta, but arrived here at the age of 7. 7 months, right. Sorry, 7 months old with his mum. But you know, he very much sees himself as, and he's in that sense probably more English than I am, because he he identifies with it more strongly. But it's interesting to hear from an English Asian who says, look, I'm aware that institutionally the country doesn't treat me the same as it would if I was white.
Well,
Sad,
that may
isn't
be
it?
the case, but there's always minorities that aren't treated badly, but not everybody thinks of him like that.
No. I hope that he knows that this is the programme and these are the listeners that don't think like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've got more in. I didn't hear him speak, but I've probably got more in common with him than. I mean, I'd watch some YouTube channels by these right-wing sort of creators, and they think everybody thinks like them. They hate immigrants. They hate asylum seekers. They think our country's been taken over. And I'm just thinking, what planet are you on? You know, they're in their little bubble where when I read the comments left by these people, a lot of them do believe the same thing as the guy making the video, but
it just defeats.
I don't think like that whatsoever. He doesn't represent me.
Or me, and I suspect most of the country. I hope. I think most of us are fairly centre politics. I think that's what most of us are. We want small government and want to be left alone to live our lives, right? But what these people need to do is look up numbers and see, the vast majority of people in this country are white British. The vast majority, 80%, something in that region, if not higher. But they won't. But facts like that don't trouble them, right? They're not interested. No. We're in a post-fact era. We feel things rather than learn things in this country at the moment.
Well, I think we're more of a left-wing country than we are a right-wing. But because of our voting system, we normally end up with a right-wing Tory government because they don't get the majority of the vote. The majority of the vote goes to left-wing parties like Liberal Democrats and Labour and the Greens.
Yeah.
But they always get the majority. I mean, I think that the Conservatives have only won more than 50% of the vote twice in history. So only twice the majority of people voted for them for 120 years. Most of the time, people vote for a left-wing government.
Yeah, but like you said, the idiosyncrasies of our voting system mean that we don't get the party we don't get the government we voted for. And look, I think that I genuinely hope that it is true that most people in this country are pretty liberal in their views. But what we hear is the loud, outspoken, shouty right-wing voice, which is, which goes unchallenged, unfettered, and uneducated. And that's the problem that we have, that those that shout the loudest, it's like the same with the trans argument, right? So you've got these trans activists who shout loud and we think that all trans are like that. Well, they're not. They just want a quiet, happy life. They're not interested in all of that. So it's the same thing, isn't it? It's just the shout, the people who shout the loudest. I mean, I get complaints to me saying, "Oh, she's so opinionated." No, it's not that. They don't like my opinion because it doesn't match their opinion. So,
the whole trans debate. I mean, that is just right-wing politics. You see the same thing in America. The trans debate is absolutely huge. With the right-wing
Christian fundamentalists,
is huge.
Massive.
The two, it's all they go on about it all the time. But I think it's only. I don't know what the population trans.
It's 0.0. It's 0.02 or something. It's minute.
Yeah, and I mean, trans people have been there for thousands of years, but we used to bash gay people, but that's not politically correct anymore. We've moved on from that. We've got gay marriage or what have you. So now it's all about the trans people. They're the new villains.
Well, we've got to have a villain, haven't we? Because while we're arguing and hating each other, people on benefits, disability, all of that, while we're hating each other and scrabbling around in the dirt, we're not paying attention to what government is doing, and that's the way they want us. They want us divided, they want us hating each other, and they want angry, right-wing, shouty people because that keeps the attention off them.
Well, yeah, and I mean, it amazes me when I listen to sort of talk radio and what have you. There's so many lies out there, and the lies are just repeated over and over and over again. And the person that's hosting the show knows that the things that the caller's saying are complete lies, but they just go along with it. That's the trouble. They just go along with the lies, and I'm just thinking, oh, you must know that that's not true. It's a bit like the vaccine rollout. It was so successful because we left the EU. That's why we could roll out the vaccine, better than any other country. But when you're in a pandemic, when there's a national emergency, your healthcare system can do whatever it likes. There's no EU rules at all.
That's right. Yeah.
But people keep repeating it. Oh, they even do it now. Kemi Badenoch. She repeats it. Yeah, Johnson.
Look,
saying the same thing.
I will become. You've kind of put me in quite an awkward position here, but I know that for me, all I do is I hold true to facts, and sometimes people don't want to hear them, and I will argue with people and point out truths where I can. I can only be responsible for myself.
Yeah, but another thing is, you get lies. The lies go on for weeks.
No, I agree, and that you have no idea how much that frustrates me, and it really frustrates me because once a lie is out there and it's repeated and repeated and repeated, it then becomes somewhat of a truth, right? And that, to people who haven't seen or heard the other side of it. And I'm with you, Kevin, and I think it's very, very, it's very difficult and it's very divisive. But I will always be factual, and some people don't like that, and that's fine.
But the truth never gets any airtime. The story come out, it was a lie, but that doesn't get any coverage. They just move on to the next line. Remember, there was a story about a poppy seller on some station in London that got attacked for selling poppies.
Yeah.
Can you remember that story? That turned out not to be true. No, the pupil that identified as a cat, that wasn't true either. The school headmistress said it's not true. There's no pupil that identifies a cat. And apparently the same story was in America. The same story is a pupil identified.
Listen, Kevin, I absolutely 100% agree with you. And it really frustrates me when I see a lie. I mean, a lie, what is it they say? A lie goes round the world twice before the truth can even catch it up. It is very difficult to be truthful. But the real truth is, Kevin, a lot of people don't want the truth. They want a narrative that supports their own thoughts. And nobody should be allowing that to happen. I often say on this program, if you don't like facts and you don't like the truth, this isn't the program for you, because I'm never going to back down from that. But I can only be responsible for me. And look, whatever you say about other people, they're extremely popular. And people will always turn in and tune in for popular people. Kevin, great to talk to you. Thank you. I've got to take a quick break, but I will be back.
across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, and a very, very good morning to you. Gosh, it's Thursday morning. I'm a bit discombobulated because I wasn't in on Monday, so this is weird. I keep thinking it's yesterday, but anyway, it is not. Angie has sent a message in saying, English culture to me is all its quaint customs. One started in a very small village in West Yorkshire called Gawthorpe. It began as a bet between three men in a pub in 1963 of who'd win carrying a sack of coal between a pub and the village maypole. It's now grown to international participants and has men's, women's and kids' races. It takes place every Easter Monday. Even the trophies are made of coal. I love that. I mean, that must be where things like cheese rolling has come from. Gawthorpe. That's brilliant. I love that. I have to say, Sean from Oxford, I heard the passion in his voice, and I do not question his loyalty or anything, someone like him, and I absolutely would have him by my side, and all the institutions and all authorities should see him as English if he wishes to be, and that's from Tristan in Bedford. Yep, I completely agree with that. Where do you want me to go next? I'll take Sarah next. Sarah in Liverpool. Hello, Sarah.
Good evening, Petrie. Happy St George's Day for yesterday.
Thank you, and for Monday, don't forget, because you get double bubble apparently. But there you go. What do you celebrate?
In a small way.
Okay.
Well, let's be perfectly honest. Once we managed to get rid of the far right, the fascist BNP and all of them back in the late 80s, 90s, and we thought they'd gone, everyone went, great. Now we can get back to reclaiming St George's Day. And gradually, over time, everything got nice and, people didn't feel like we're not a bunch of fascists. We're claiming our patron saint back, who, by the way, has been patron saint of England since the 14th century. I've just checked that one up.
But he was Turkish. Why did we claim him?
Well, I'm not too sure, to be honest, but I think the reason there's quite a few St Georges about. There's one of the early saints of the Christian Church, and there's a few St Georges about, because I think there's one who's a patron saint in Russia and here and a few other places. So there's a few to pick from. I haven't exactly got a dictionary of saints, Andy, but no, that's the general gist. And I think the reason why he was picked back then as saint was because he embodied all of the characteristics of the English back in the medieval times thought, chivalry, defending the vulnerable, etc., etc. Something that our politicians have forgotten, which we will leave that shower out. But as I say, everyone started celebrating it, very slowly, and you see the red roses and maybe a small St George's flag in someone's lapel. And then after the Olympics and 2012 and the bite of Cameron and co, and then Brexit, and then more far-right politics and Farage, and, all of that, all those grotty little boys and girls in that particular band. And the far-right, Tommy Robinson and them waving their grotty little flags. That's when people went, we're going to back up. They hijacked it, and that's why people feel very uncomfortable about celebrating St George's Day, even though no one feels uncomfortable about celebrating St Patrick's Day or St Andrew's Day or St David's Day. But then again, let's be perfectly honest, Celts do love a good party. And have you noticed, I'm not sure about Wales, but definitely Ireland and Scotland, they are bank holidays.
That's true. They do get a day off, don't they?
Yeah, they do. I mean, they're not shy. They go, yes, let's have a day off. Let's celebrate. And believe you me, they know how to celebrate. But the problem is, with I'm not sure about St David's Day being a bank holiday. Sure, I think it might be, but I don't think it is. But the problem is with the English Parliament. Now, it wasn't like that back in the day, before Henry VIII. You were allowed to have a bank holiday, hence high days, holidays, bank holidays they became. We've got the least in Europe, which means we don't celebrate all the stuff that we're supposed to celebrate. I mean, St George's Day, yes. But at the same time, because of the disunity caused by our Westminster political masters especially over the last 15 years, we have become so fragmented, as the previous caller said. And the one thing that we should do, and to be honest, this is the one thing Corbyn was right about, all of the patron saints of the UK, we should have as a bank. Everyone should have them off as a bank holiday.
I agree. And you know what? If it could bring the English together of all shades and all descriptions of the English that England has become, that has got to be a good thing, right?
That is
mean, but I don't think that there are many people in this country want unity. I think they want division, and I think that governments feed them division. You know, either we're attacking, hating on old people because, you know, they've got all the houses and all the money.
Are they joking?
I know, exactly, I know. And then, let's hate all the brown people because they're over here taking our jobs. Or let's hate all the disabled people because they're getting benefits. Or it's almost become a national trait. It's almost become an English trait just to hate. And that is not something that I'm proud of. I think we need to be a little bit more inclusive and a little bit more empathetic.
Yeah,
that I would be proud of.
Yeah, because I mean, at one time, when someone said, "What does it mean to be English/British?" What was the first thing people used to say? Fair play, treating people, looking after those who were the most vulnerable.
And being a safe haven and taking in, the water one. And I don't know whether I don't think we can say that anymore. And I think that's a shame. Sarah, good to talk to you. Just got to go because I want to squeeze Paul in. Paul is in Hexham. Morning, Paul.
Hello, thanks for squeezing me in.
You're very welcome.
We've got a quirky little tradition here. I live near the Roman Wall, just a bit further out from Hexham, and it involves egg rolling. And what we do is we go to the top, the highest point of the Roman Wall.
Yeah.
And everyone puts their name on an egg and roll the egg down the road. And some of them crack and break and all the rest.
You're not allowed to hard boil them.
No, you can't eat.
That's cheating, is it?
People have tried to, yeah. and then after that, we've got permission from a landowner to go trout tickling. We can only take 3 trout. That means tickling the bellies of the trout.
Does that actually work?
It does, yeah. You have to be perfectly still, tickle their little bellies, and then they'll go limp, and you can just lift them out. It's almost like, I find it rather. I can't bring myself to eat them after that, actually, because we take them to the local pub, and they turn them into a pate, and all the eggs that have survived rolling down the hill get boiled, and they'll have trout pate, boiled eggs and toast. But when I see the trout pate after I've seen the little sort of, the little fish tickled, I can't.
Well, who do you think discovered? Who was the first person that discovered that if you tickle a trout, it goes limp?
I don't know. I think it could go back to Roman times. I'm not sure. But it's been going on long since I moved here.
And they just swim into your hand, ready to be tickled?
Yeah, they come through. Well, it's very shallow here, the North Tyne, so you go in with a pair of wellies, and they come through your legs, And that's why we're only allowed to take 3 out, because this is kind of the place where they they set out to see, I suppose. So it's only between March and October that you'll see them here. You'll never see them again for a long time.
I thought trout tickling was a joke. I didn't think that was a real thing.
No, I've seen it.
Have you? I mean, it sounds like a very personal question. I've only just met you. Have you tickled a trout?
I've never tickled it. No, I've never done it. I couldn't bring myself to do it.
No, that seems a bit disingenuous, doesn't it?
I'm a chef as well. I'm a chef, and I really couldn't do it. I really couldn't. And there's an old chap as well who makes parsnip wine at Christmas.
Oh, that sounds great.
And, he brings that along. This is all part of St. George's Day.
So the eggs are part of St. George's.
Wine.
Why the egg? I mean, I can see that for Easter, but why St. George's Day?
I think it's just because it's near St. George's Day.
Okay.
You know, it's all in a week or two of each other. And I don't know about the parsnip wine. I think it's just because they like to get a little bit merry.
There's not much. I suppose there is actually quite a lot of sugar in parsnip. I was trying to think what parsnip wine would taste like.
It tastes more like sherry.
Does it?
You know, Tio Pepe. It tastes more like that, and it does. I mean, it give you a headache the next day. Put it that way. In fact, if you spoke to Ed Miliband, you could probably run.
You run our energy system on it. That sounds like a good plan.
It's that severe.
How many eggs actually make
it's
it?
It's a wonderful thing.
It's lovely.
You know?
I think it's great, and the whole village comes out, does it? The whole.
Yeah, there's at least 50 people there, all ages. You know, what I like about it is